to have the feature, the bonding session. Well, it's not quite called the bonding session, but the essence is the same. A fireside chat today with Phumzile Zonke. So looking forward to that conversation, and we'll see what he wants to raise. That will certainly get you thinking about many things. But let's get to first things first. With the election coming up, right? The fact that you need to have your IDs in place, I think, are particularly important. So let's find out with some changes regarding the Department of Home Affairs and their hours of business. That's made a change that I think you need to know about, okay? With me is the spokesperson for Home Affairs, Siya Koza. Appreciate your time and thanks for joining me.
Yes, good afternoon, Ashraf, and welcome back on the airwaves.
Much appreciated, thank you. Right, so let's talk about what has happened here. There's been some changes in hours of business from Home Affairs, right? What are they?
Yes, so we are opening our offices on Saturdays for the next, from tomorrow up until the 25th of May. That covers a period of 7 Saturdays. We are opening from 8 o'clock in the morning up until 1 o'clock. We are doing so to help people who want to come and apply or collect their IDs to do that. And if people want to apply for a temporary identification certificate, they can also come through. We'll be able to assist them.
So basically, it's like for just over 4 weeks, right? In essence, I take it
7 weeks?
Is it 7 weeks? Okay, I take it then it is completely linked to our election coming up, right?
Well, it is linked to the upcoming elections, and we just want people who have applied to come and collect, and those who want to apply to be able to do so. So this is what one of the things that we're doing to support the elections.
I mean, I take it most people will be thrilled at that because, for many others it means to apply or to receive your ID, it means taking time off from work, and it's a huge hassle, as we know, right? So this would please them, and maybe this ease of doing business is the way to go. Is there any scope? I mean, do I take it this change, even for the 7 weeks, has been prompted not just by the election, but research suggests that more people will come over that Saturday?
Well, I think the response lies in part of what we have raised. We don't ordinarily open on weekends, and when we do open on weekends, we find that people tend to come mostly in the mornings. And because we don't open, and you've got quite a number of people who don't or are unable to find time to come back to collect the documents, taking quite a long time to come and collect. So when we open on weekends, people tend to come. If I may just make an example, we had more than 60,000 people coming in over the voter registration weekends. But even there, it was both to apply and to collect. Over the 2 voter registration weekends we had in November last year and also in February this year.
Okay. I mean, perhaps moving forward, I mean, isn't there scope in the way we work nowadays that perhaps it's time for Home Affairs to be open every Saturday permanently because of the fact that it is really convenient for people and inconvenient for them to take time off from work?
Well, we are engaged in conversations that will eventually lead to that reality. We need to have to finalize our engagements with Labour, and we are also working on a Home Affairs bill that will also help towards that. So at the moment, it's not possible to do that without having the consultations with Labour and also finalizing the bill that we're working on. But
understandable.
It's something that is top of mind.
Understandable. It's got Labour implications. Just by the way, before I let you go, I mean it's been going on for a while now. The let's call it the outsourcing, for want of a better word. The fact that banks have been able to process certain documents. Has that worked over the last few years?
Well, it is not. It's not outsourcing. It's more of a partnership because what is happening with the banks is that they are an extension of the application part. So we still do all of the back end process. That part is not outsourced. They're just providing us with office space plus the technology the computers to link to our systems. We still provide our own employees, and the people's data is still protected protected within the Home Affairs environment.
Okay, but you're using their space, right? I mean, that's the space. But has that principle worked? I mean, has it because it's an example of taking Home Affairs to the people in multiple, satellite offices, which is a lot better than centralizing it, right?
Well, it is working, and in addition to that, we also have got mobile offices that we are deploying throughout the country as well, so that if you're not close to a bank but you live in a remote area, you are still able to access Home Affairs offices, because we've got at the moment 100 mobile offices. There are other 100 offices that will be in addition that will be added next month.
Okay. Any final thoughts you may want to tell us around Home Affairs and your plans in this election season?
Well, we are looking at all of at making sure that we make it as easy and as convenient as possible for people to come and apply. We are going to be monitoring what happens in terms of volumes of people coming into our offices. If we do see that there is a need to increase, to operate beyond 1 o'clock, we'll take the decision, but that will be informed by what we are experiencing on the ground.
Well, that makes complete sense to me. Thank you so much. And I think that level of efficiency and high productivity is exactly what we need, and a copy and paste of that around the country all of the time. So, Sia Kosa, thanks for your time, spokesperson for Home Affairs, and thanks for the warm welcome again. Much appreciated, Sia. Thank you for that. Well, there you are, Sia. So, by the way, talking about the warm welcome, I've sort of been to a mall, shopping centre yesterday, and wherever I've been, even this morning, people coming up, listening to SAFM, listening to the show. There's been WhatsApps, those who know my number, and it's really, really appreciated. This is a journey we're going to take, myself, my production team, as well as yourself, as we try and get our fingers on the national pulse and really feel the pulse, not just today, but every single day throughout the year. So I really appreciate you being part of this unique partnership of engagement on the national platform. I asked you earlier on about your own personal voting patterns. Do you vote alone? Do you vote in a collective? Do you vote with your party political regalia or not? We've got a few voice notes. Here they are.
Hi, this is Mozingiti at Mkambatini Makongo at St. Petersburg. I don't think it's a good idea to go with a whole family to the voting station. You must wake up and take your ID and go into the voting station alone. And after that, you may go back to your normal duty. We must not making any group around the voting station. We don't want any chaos. This is Mozingiti at Mkambatini Makongo. I thank you.
Okay, I wonder why there would be chaos. I don't know, Musi. I mean, really? I think there's like camaraderie that you all go together. I know, and I'm going back to that first election when we waited for 5 hours, and I remember we were obviously saying, this is long, and my uncle made the point. He said, I've waited for like 40 years before I could vote. That's him talking and referring to the Mandelas of the world, to say spending all these years in prison. He said, really, I can wait another 5 hours. It makes no difference to me. But to be part of a collective of national purpose in this case, effectively willing our country onto democracy, and we do that every 5 years, and we do that again on the 29th of May. Like, I want to be part of a collective. So not only with it regarding family, but you also. I get very disappointed when I go to a voting booth and there's very few people there. I want to be there when there's a crowd. I like I want to stick around there. I like the humdum, because it just suggests that we're there for the greatest purpose, which I think is really great. By the way, you've heard the story about Eskom continuing with their suspension of load shedding. I made the point yesterday. This continues. Long may this continue. We're going to talk about why. What has actually happened around that? But before that, something that's rather fiery is escalating tensions between the neighboring countries of Somalia and Ethiopia. We'll pick up on that right after this.
Masanda wanna trust their creativity to ensure Yanga gets nothing from Mzansi's capital city. But the gentlemen from the east want to leave Kabuyelo in tears. This is the second leg quarterfinal battle of the CAF Champions League. Experience Africa's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns versus Young Africans, on Friday 5 April at 8 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more, just to be the car, we'll come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da. We buy cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Letabo Khanyago from Idiski Times, Banyana Banyana, and a chance to go and celebrate in Gay Paris, as they say, if they can win this match against Nigeria over 2 legs.
Only one of those two African giants can go to Paris, and it will be absolutely great if it's the African champions, Banyana Banyana.
It's the advantage, I suppose, of playing the second leg at home, which means if South Africa can get some sort of a result, they'll find it a little bit easier, I suppose, on home soil on Tuesday.
Absolutely. I mean, like, if we check the record of how the qualifiers have gone, we have had the luck, so to say, of starting away and coming back home to finish it off.
Top Sport on SAFM. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
And keep those WhatsApps coming if you want to call in. That's also great. 086 000 2032. You know, you can talk about whatever it is you want to get off your chest, whatever your pulse are feeling right now. But if you want to focus just on my point about voting in the elections, do you go alone? Do you go with a group? What's your family voting pattern? I certainly would love to know. I certainly want to go on my own. No, certainly do not want to go on my own. I certainly like group voting. Of course, you're going to the booth alone, we know that. But I'm talking about in the queue, okay? You need to be part of it. Like, that's part of the fun, really. And serious fun in this case about building a country, isn't it? Okay, let's talk about the serious issue of Somalia and Ethiopia. There's been escalating tensions between those two countries, which is always a cause for concern, okay? So let's get the backstory around that and what this really means with Abdurazak Ali Osman, who's an international relations political analyst from the University of Johannesburg. Abdurazak, appreciate your time and welcome to the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and thanks to the listeners. Thank you very much for having me.
Much appreciated. Okay, so let's start with the now. What has actually happened right now that has caused this tension?
I think this problem started back January 2023 when the Ethiopian government had signed a controversial port deal with the breakaway Somaliland, which the Somali government, federal government, are not actually recognized as an independent state at the time. So that's when the tensions actually started between the two countries.
So that's like, what, 30 odd years ago? Is that right?
No,
1991, even longer, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but that's when it started. So what has happened now between these two countries, Somalia and Ethiopia?
Ethiopia actually have been trying to actually meddle into the affairs of Somali country's sovereignty and its integrity by actually trying to sign professional deals with breakaway region, as I mentioned, it's Somaliland. Mm-hmm. Earlier this year, January 2024, where they are trying to get actually to let part of Somali's Red Sea, to actually set up a naval base and a commercial base. As you know, Ethiopia is just a local landlocked country, one of those countries in Africa and continent. Mm. And its leader, Abiy Ahmed, has already actually advocating quite a number of times that Ethiopia needs to get access to sea is an existential matter for them. So they have been trying actually Somalia has maybe become somehow a softer target where they can actually break the provinces that are trying to break away from the whole Somali mainland. Okay. And try to sign an agreement with them in order for them to get access to the sea.
So Somalia's problem is that Ethiopia doing a deal with Somaliland, right, is problematic. I understand that Somaliland itself is still not being recognized by the UN. Am I right?
Yes, not only UN,
EU doesn't even recognize. Somalia itself doesn't recognize that particular region as an still independent state. So Ethiopia is trying actually to break that even the EU convention by recognizing, or breaking the countries into provinces in that matter.
But if that's the case, then it's not just an affront to the Somalis of Somalia, but also to the African Union, right? I mean, why would the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed take that risk?
I think it's hard to say, but there's a lot of actually ideas running around, and most of them actually Somali government believes is that Abiy Ahmed actually facing quite a number of challenges in the internal ethnic, rivalries and political instability within Ethiopia, and now he's trying actually to divert that pressure, to Somalia outside of his country, so that he can actually divert the attention of the Ethiopian population to an outsider problem that he's currently facing, So, he's actually trying to, offload quite a number of political pressures locally, domestically to an international one.
Okay. Now, I understand that the Somalians, in response to this MOU between Ethiopia and Somaliland, right, they've expelled the Ethiopian ambassador. I mean, that normally would be the first sign that relations are not good between these neighbors. What are the implications of the expelling of the ambassador? What are the implications? Because what I'm concerned about, you certainly don't want to have rising tensions between these neighbors, right?
The tensions are running high, Ashraf, at the moment. And Somali government, they did not initially actually expel the Ethiopia's envoy into Mogadishu. They previously recalled the ambassador from Addis Ababa to show the dissatisfaction of what they are doing at that time in January. Since then, they have been trying actually Ethiopia to understand the position, and they called actually that agreement completely void. You understand? So, and it's not only that Somalia. I think AU, European Union, and the United States all called Ethiopia to respect the integrity and the sovereignty of the Somali, nation, where they actually turn a blind eye all those callings and everything, and now they continue now to interfere the internal affairs of the Somali nation. And now the Somali government are trying actually to take things a bit further. So they try to expel the envoy in Mogadishu now, and they have closed actually two different consulates that they had in Garowe and Hargeisa, both of them. They formed them to close them up in order for them to make things a bit, hotter now. So the implications, seems Ashraf, now they are going to be, the two countries now are becoming diplomatically a bit stiff.
Yeah.
And now I think the scenario, the possible scenarios that are coming after this is going to be that now that both countries are now trying to actually tie up those bilateral relations between the two countries in terms of businesses that they are having together, and then now they are completely closing. There will be a diplomatic standoff. That's what we are expecting.
Yeah. Okay, just in 30 seconds to wrap up then, has there been a response from the African Union in particular regarding this latest issue?
There's no specific response. I mean, this is the main problem as well. The AU leaders have been actually trying to sugarcoat things, not to inform Ethiopia directly to, stop what they're doing, interfering, in an independent African state, a member state, where completely intervenes. It is, a convention. It is constitution.
Okay.
So it's not clear actually where they are standing currently.
And that's all important. Let's leave it at that. Thank you for your time, Abdurazak Ali Osman, international relations political analyst from the University of Johannesburg. So there you are. You got Somalia, you have Somaliland, and you have Ethiopia, Somalia. They're all neighbors, of course. Somaliland seceded 1991, not recognized by the world, and now Ethiopia effectively making a deal with Somaliland. As a result of that, the Somalians, not to get confused with that, have now expelled the Ethiopian ambassador. That is problematic. Let's get more from the news with Eva Chipa.
Thanks, Ashraf. In your news making headlines, Zimbabwe has, with immediate effect, introduced a new gold-backed currency called ZiG, which stands for Zimbabwe Gold. Central Bank Governor John Mushayavanu said the ZiG will be structured and set at a market-determined exchange rate. In other news, Power Utility Eskom has announced that load shedding will remain suspended until further notice after 9 consecutive days of no blackouts, and the murder trial of 5 men accused of killing Collins Chabane Municipal Mayor Moses Maluleke has been adjourned to Monday in the High Court in Polokwane, Limpopo. I'll be back at 4 with more news. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A very good afternoon. Durban traffic looking okay. Today, some of the usual spots are okay. Pietermaritzburg down to Cato Ridge looks fine. If you're heading now through the roadworks towards Durban, the N2 between Umgeta Road and Spaghetti Junction, busy but moving better than it can do sometimes. And if you're on your way to the south coast, the N2 looking all right. Down through Prospect and Isipingo, through Manzam Toti, and off you go. Trips onto the south coast this afternoon. Looking good at this stage. Joburg, the Mike 1, fairly heavy from Empire Road down towards Boysons. There's some backlogging going on through Midrand towards Joburg. A crash before you get to Olifantsfontein Road, so traffic parking back as far as Samrand Road. The rest of Gauteng generally looking okay today. Cape Town, the M5, slow going from Maitland down to Crombourne Road, and already a little bit of a backlog situation on Nelson Mandela Boulevard heading out of town. The N2 just queuing out through Hospital Bend out towards Lisbeck Parkway. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
So, to me, let's talk sport. I suggest you're going to lead with a story linked to the outfit you're wearing today.
Absolutely. I'm supporting them through and through. A very good afternoon to you. We start things off with football. Well, Banyana head coach Desiree Ellis has given credit to their technical team for getting the players prepared to face Nigeria in a crucial CAF Olympic qualifier. Banyana and Nigeria will face off in a 2-legged clash scheduled for tonight and on Tuesday. Ellis says that she's thrilled with all the preparations that they have done in camp coming into this match.
Making sure that we got here early so that we could acclimatize. Even though we have a heat wave in South Africa, it's a completely different heat. And I think we experienced that on a few days, some days warmer than others. But I think we've put in a lot of work back home, but we've also put in some work here. The players have come in and put all of it together. I think very excited about the training and the commitment and the effort. But a big thank you to the technical team. They have been amazing, in assisting in all of this. We 2 games away, and it's going to be the toughest games.
Well, kickoff is at 6 p.m. and as per usual, we've got you covered here at SABC. You can watch the game on SABC Plus or the SABC Sport website. Still staying with women's football, England face Sweden in their first Euro 2025 qualifier tonight before facing Republic of Ireland on Tuesday as they bid to defend their European title. It was during the Win Euro 2022 campaign in which England thrashed Sweden 4-0 in the semi-finals. Asked whether the performance would provide any inspiration going into this year's campaign, Wichmann stressed the importance of focusing on the present.
We haven't used that. That was then, and that was a great moment, but we all move on. There have been lots of things happened in between that period, that time and now, and we're in this new situation now. Of course, we know Sweden very well. They know us very well too, so we're preparing on what we have seen lately from them and what we want to do and how we want to play. So that's basically what we're talking about.
Then, Mamelodi Sundowns head coach Rulani Mokoena has urged the Yellow Nation to come in their numbers to rally behind the team when they face Young Africans in the second leg of the CAF Champions League quarterfinal. Masandawana is one of the clubs in contention of qualifying for the FIFA Club World Cup 2025, and Sundowns will qualify through rankings if they beat Yanga. And other than that, the Tunisian club would qualify by winning the CAF Champions League or by overtaking Sundowns in the ranking pathway. Kickoff is at 8 p.m.
I honestly believe that tomorrow, if they come out in the numbers, they fill the stadium and they make it yellow, they make the opposition uncomfortable throughout, and even in the moments where we are suffering, they can't suffer with us. They've got to energize us and push us and give us that extra push, and sometimes that's where we have it with the Sundowns fans, to be honest, and the Yellow Nation is when we suffer, they suffer. they can't suffer with us tomorrow. They've got to come and they've got to energize us and push us. And I think if that can happen tomorrow, we've got a big advantage, because when Loftus is buzzing, when the Yola Nation is singing, and with the energy that they are able to give us.
Well, fans are urged to arrive early and gates open at 5 p.m. On to tennis, Nick Kyrgios says that he's very hopeful of a return to the tennis court next week. The Australian had missed virtually the entire of 2023 season with injury, and the last time he played was back in 2022, late 2022, and he just played one ATP Tour level match after suffering a wrist and knee injury. The 28-year-old says that he's back practicing next week, but he hasn't given a date on when he'll be back playing on the ATP Tour again. Anything's off with motorsport. McLaren's Oscar Piastri went fastest today in a second practice for the Japanese Grand Prix that was badly affected by rain at Suzuka. Piastri, who finished third at last year's race, clocked 1 minute 34 seconds in on and off showers to finish 0.501 seconds clear of Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen and teammate Sergio Perez did not come out for a second practice. Verstappen led Perez for a Red Bull 1 and 2 in the first practice. However, they were among the drivers who stayed in the garage for the second session as the teams tried to preserve their tyres in the tricky conditions. Then Ferrari's Charles Leclerc was third fastest. With that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in at the next hour. For SAFM Sport, I'm Dumin Kapele.
Aston Villa have found comfort on the top half, and they want maximum points to retain their decent position.
Put it back, and this time, Zaniolo is on! The equaliser belongs to Aston Villa!
Yet the Bees want to cause havoc and deprive the Villains by registering an away victory.
Wissart tried one of them in the first half, he's finished it in the second, and Brentford have turned this round.
This is the Premier League. Catch the exciting clash between Aston Villa FC and Brentford FC on Saturday, 6 April at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. Unforgettable happens when the young and the old know they can surf, snorkel, fish, enjoy whale watching, and end the day with sundowners Neshisanyama. KwaZulu-Natal is a jewel waiting to happen. Ziyakhipha with hiking, horse riding, biking, ziplining, and mountain biking adventures waiting for the fearless and the bold. Unforgettable happens here. Zwagala. Brought to you by Tourism KwaZulu-Natal.
Call us on 086 000 2032. You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. SAFM.
And certainly, what are you feeling with regard to the National Pulse? What's your, fingers on the pulse? What do you feel? What do you see? You let me know. You can connect with me anytime. Call in to 086 000 2032. 086 000 2032. Whatever it is you want to get off your chest. Also, WhatsApp, either in voice note or text form, 0614 104 107. I see somebody asked a question about regarding the issue of the United Nations security. In fact, let me read it. Tafara saying, Ashraf, good afternoon. Does the latest UN resolution halt the Israeli arms orders that have already been placed, paid for, and are probably being processed? Well, I'll tell you what, from Tafara, your question will be answered when I chat to Zenit Adam pretty shortly. So looking forward to that conversation. Just stick around for that, okay? Right, let's get some calls. Butana from Rosebank, hi.
Hi, good afternoon, my brother.
Sweet time, very good. You're so excited and enthusiastic, man.
Yes, I'm always. It is well and good for Home Affairs to open on Saturdays.
Yeah.
But they must stop abusing us. By the way, abuse is not limited to them. Let me explain to you what happened. I applied for my passport there. And then I was taken to pillar to post. Eventually, I was allowed to do it. And then I get an SMS to go and pick up my passport. They took my receipt. They punched my number there, so that the track who's supposed to be the next. And there's a poster that says, we are always offline. Poster, put in there, in Johannesburg. And now it was my turn to get my passport. They throw my receipt in a dustbin. I asked, where's my receipt? They said I must go and pick it up in the dustbin. I complained there. Nobody has assisted me. And by the way, the abuse is not limited to Home Affairs. UIF and the former speaker told us as well. The abuse is not only there, in prison.
Okay, Butana, let me ask you this then. So regarding throwing your receipt in the dustbin, why did they throw it in the dustbin? Did they give you a reason why?
They didn't care to give me a reason. They said I must go and pick it up in the dustbin. They didn't care.
So what has happened now regarding your application?
Well, I got my passport, but I lost about 400 rand that I have to claim from my employer because I don't have a receipt. Very abusive people there. By the way, it's not limited to them there. And tell them that I've got an appointment with them in the 29th. Those union people and COSATU and ANC.
You have an appointment with them on the 29th when you're voting. Is that what you're saying?
Of course, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, Butana, you are enthusiastic, and I'm sure we're going to have many conversations leading up to May 29. All right?
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you. There you are. Thanks, bro. There we are. But he's concerned. I mean, it's a crazy story, isn't it? Thank goodness he's got his passport. Thank goodness for that. Can you imagine if he didn't? Then what? But he said it's happened across the board. Well, there are people and they have difficulty pushing back. And then that's what happens. By the way, talking about pushing back, today, so we've got this new feature it's moved from, the bonding session to the fireside chat. And I chat to Phumzile Zonke. So you may want to put some question through to Phumzile. Looking forward to that conversation. And he's going to he has raised a very interesting topic, which I'll tell you about, not right now, just now. I also asked the question about democracy. And when you're going to vote in the election, do you go on your own solo or you go with your friends, family, chommies, whatever? And we've also had responses to the Ascom story. Here it is.
Ashraf, the suspension of load shedding by Eskom is a culmination of a very long period of hard work and preparation, which comes back a long way back. But at some point, somebody is going to say to us, it's because elections are coming and therefore there's no load shedding, which has got absolutely nothing to do with that. Eskom has been working hard, has been hard at work, trying to fix things that were destroyed during the state capture period. And now we are beginning to see the results, like Pretoria East.
Well, there you are. Thanks for that, Lucky. Well, maybe you're right. I mean, you're right. Many people have said that, you'll see what will happen. For a month before the elections, it will be smooth sailing. No load shedding. On the other hand, we as South Africans, we don't really know what we want, isn't it? When there's load shedding, it's a problem. When there's no load shedding, yeah, it's also a problem. No, I want no load shedding. Let's just chill with that. Whatever the motivation is, if service delivery to us means we have a better way of living every single day, that's absolutely great. Okay, there's another voice note. Hear this.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Makwarela Shinyazo from Toyando. Ashraf, when I started voting, I think it was in 2014, when I started voting. For me, it has always been a one-man show. I always go to the polls or to the polling station or to vote alone, But I try to convince my mother and my sister and my brother and my nephew, but they all said no. They did not want to vote, They always complain that the politicians are liars. They will promise you things that they will never do, That is the problem here, because here where I live, there's a very poor service delivery. But now, during this election times, you see them going around upside down, campaigning to get voters, lure voters.
Well, there you are. So, thanks for that. So, you see, your point is like, it's not like they are they're voting, but they're not voting with you. You're saying they're actually not voting at all. But it is one of the anomalies that in areas which are most affected by poor service delivery, there's large levels of dissatisfaction to the point where people are like, I don't need to vote anyway. But that's why you need to vote. Do not let the political parties take you for granted. Seriously, they cannot take you for granted. I mean, we call the show The National Pulse for a reason. If you are dissatisfied and you're irritated and you're angry and you feel that you've been let down for a long, long time, do not let any of the parties, the ruling party and the other parties, do not let them take you for granted, and give them a message in terms of what it is their vision is and whether you buy into that vision. That's why you must vote. I'm not saying who to vote for, but vote and send out a message to them. Welcome further thoughts and calls via WhatsApp, text or voice notes, or certainly calls as well. Let's, however, move on to another big issue as part of our Global Watch feature, which is the United Nations, well, a short while ago, in fact. So let me get my wording right. The United Nations Human Rights Council, that's a key word. They've adopted a resolution calling for a global ban on weapon sales to Israel. That, of course, in the backdrop of this ongoing escalation between Israel and Palestine, specifically hashtag Gaza, and with so many people having died. So what does this mean? Let's try and understand what it means. What are the implications thereof? And that question we've had one of the callers asking about, sales already ordered. Will they still be delivered? Zinat Adam is with me. She's the Deputy Executive Director at the Afro Middle East Center. Zinat, appreciate your time. Good afternoon and welcome to the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and welcome back to the airwaves.
Much appreciated, thank you indeed, and hopefully we'll have many chats like this in the months ahead, right? So let's start with the big issue. Yeah, so a resolution passed. Give us context.
There have been a few resolutions at the Human Rights Council today related to Israel and the occupied Palestine. The most specific one has been on the human rights situation brought to the table by Pakistan on behalf of the Organization of Islamic Countries. It was passed with 28 yeses, 6 against, and 13 abstentions. Notoriously, those who voted against this resolution is the United States and Germany. Now, this was to indicate that there should be an end to any arms sales to Israel during the ongoing aggression in the Gaza Strip, and also applying pressure to end the illegal blockade of Gaza and the illegal occupation of the whole of Palestine, calling for a cessation of hostilities and the prevention of genocide and ethnic cleansing. It comes very significantly just as there's mounting pressure on Israel after the attacks on the World Central Kitchen aid convoy, in which foreign aid workers were killed. So there is mounting pressure on Israel to look at the protection of civilians and foreign aid workers, and considering that they have been completely defiant in the face of UN Security Council resolutions and in the face of the ICJ, this is also an additional pressure onto the Israelis and their allies.
Okay, so the point made specifically is it's a resolution calling for a ban on weapons sales right now. You mentioned that there were two countries, Germany and the USA, that opposed it. How much teeth does that have?
Well, we have to understand that any UN Human Rights Council resolution is not a binding resolution. The only binding resolutions come out of the Security Council. Okay. And that's what we saw 2 weeks ago. But we had John Kirby from the United States turn around the next day and say that resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire until the end of Ramadan was not binding, which was an absolute untruth. All Security Council resolutions are binding. What was lacking in that one was an enforcement regulation that comes when you find a resolution under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. So what we can expect is that the United States and Germany and others will probably continue to supply Israel with arms, as the United States did the day after the United Nations Security Council resolution. They are not interested in curbing the weapons sales because it's about war profiteering at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. But we have heard that Biden has had a telephone call with Netanyahu today, and he's applied pressure on Netanyahu to take certain action in terms of humanitarian protection measures. And as a result, Israel has announced for the first time in the 6 months of their onslaught and carnage in Gaza that they will be reopening 2 of the 8 crossings on their side of the border, which is Erez and Ashdod. So no longer will it only be the border crossings with Egypt where aid would be allowed to come through.
Okay.
The second thing that has happened is that Israel has had an inquiry. They've done their own independent inquiry saying that they found serious errors and breaches in procedures, and they've sacked 2 of their commanders following the killing of the foreign aid workers from the World Central Kitchen.
Okay, which has caused such an uproar as we know it, and many suggesting, in fact, there's been a selective uproar because of the nationalities of those people killed, right?
Yes, absolutely. What this is telling us is that the lives of the 33,000 to 40,000 Palestinians are worth less than those of foreign aid workers, and that there will only be action when foreigners are killed. This is really disheartening. And the other thing is that if Israel is doing their own inquiry and investigation and expecting everyone to respect that, we've seen their investigation when it came to their assassination of the journalist Shireen Abu Akleh and the lies that came with that. So it's really unsurprising, but they've had 2 fall guys coming out of this. The difficulty that I'm finding, Ashraf, is that they have dug their heels in on the ceasefire negotiations that have been going on. They are unwilling to consider a ceasefire. What they are looking at is a temporary truce. They're not interested in a military withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. They do not want to allow the Palestinians who have been internally displaced into Rafah to return to their homes in the north of Gaza. And they're preparing for an invasion into Rafah. So this is deeply concerning.
Just pick up on the preparing for invasion. I mean, are you saying that as a fact, or is that an opinion?
No, that's a fact. And they've announced that, and they've had it as a military strategy. They seem to only be waiting until the end of Ramadan after the UN Security Council resolution.
As the best way, in their opinion, to sort of kill off of Hamas. I mean, according to their line. Let me move back to the issue then in terms of the resolution, right? So if it's not binding, because it's certainly not been rubber-stamped by the United Nations Security Council, how much currency does this have? I mean, does it have more emotional currency, symbolically, in the light of what appears to be a shift away from pro-Israeli sentiments to pro-Palestinian sentiments in the last few weeks?
I think that we've certainly been seeing a major global shift in public opinion in terms of what is taking place in Gaza. People have recognized and witnessed firsthand the absolute carnage and devastation and genocide that has been taking place. And there's a desperate yearning in the international community for action to be taken. And what we've seen is a paralysis of the global governance structures and infrastructure within the United Nations. If we are relying on the Security Council, where you have 5 permanent members who are utilizing their veto in order to protect Israel or to have their own face-off within the Security Council, that becomes very difficult. And when you have a country like Israel that has been defiant of various instruments through the Security Council over decades and over 75 years, this is unsurprising. But it does add a little bit of weight coming from the Human Rights Council. That, in addition to the recent report by the UN Special Rapporteur, Francesca Albanese, who has also said that there needs to be not only a ceasefire, but an arms embargo and additional enforcement measures for a ceasefire and punitive measures against Israel for non-compliance with international law.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. I think somebody made the point earlier on today to say if a land was flattened by the USA as well, to the level that the Gaza region has been flattened, even then the world would come against them, and they haven't done that to that level of degree with what's happened with Israel and the Palestinians. Zeenat Adam, thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Zeenat Adam speaking on behalf of, she is the Deputy Executive Director at the Afro-Middle East Center. Let's talk about Eskom and no load shedding after this.
The city of Cairo will be divided into two when Zamalek SC confronts their Modern Future. Zamalek strongly believe they are the kings of the city, but Modern Future want to display something special to conquer the Cairo derby. This is the second leg of the CAF Confederation Cup quarter-final. Catch Zamalek SC versus Modern Future, Sunday 7 April at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Yesterday we spoke about medical doctors not getting jobs in KZN. Now there's issues about teacher cuts in the Western Cape. We'll talk about that after on the other side of the news, right? In the meantime, no load shedding continues. Wow. Daphne Mokoena is with me. She's the spokesperson for Ascom. Daphne, appreciate your time, and I love the good news, by the way.
Oh, good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you.
Well, aren't we all, loving the good news?
It's not often an Eskom spokesperson talks to me and smiles on the national airwaves, right? But I can hear your smile because you've got some good news, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So why is this? I mean, I'm delighted, but why has this continued for well over a week now, and hopefully beyond?
Yeah. Look, Ashraf, it's not a matter of obviously an overnight success, as it may have seen, as you have may seen that obviously we have experienced 9 days without load shedding, and we're saying obviously we continue with that. However, the efforts that you remember, I think in October we did mention that we have implemented what we call the Generation Operational Recovery Plan, where in that there are focused priority stations that we are looking at and ensure, because we have identified these stations as obviously stations that are struggling in terms of performance. So with us, all these stations, we have made up plans so that we have, focused plans to ensure that they improve in terms of how they perform or their reliability. And we are seeing that in terms of what we call unplanned outages on most of these stations, it's about 6 that we identified. We are seeing a positive trend in terms of reduced unplanned outages.
Mm-hmm.
So
And that's a key maintenance issue, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So and as you would have seen that immediately in September, end of September, when we started recovering the Kusile units, you remember that we had 3 units out, unit 1, 2, 3, and after recovering those units, we started also increasing our maintenance in these focused stations, but also in other stations that needed, some form of attention in terms of maintenance.
Okay.
Now that, and obviously us adding Kusile Unit 5 in December, you would remember. But obviously the benefits, the country couldn't see them immediately because we were focusing as well on increasing maintenance. Obviously, that at away the capacity that is available.
Okay.
That is one of the things that actually makes us not to implement load shedding.
Okay. So definitely, we're almost on to news time. Here's a question for you. I mean, it's 9 days.
Yes.
How long will this continue? Meaning, can I now disconnect my my generator?
Not yet. So we're going to see more of these days, although we'll have obviously some of the days where we need to recover either our emergencies and still continue with our maintenance. But the future is looking very good in terms of less intense, or some of the days no load shedding and less frequent load shedding.
Well, it sounds good. What is like the future? Show me the light, and you certainly have showed it to us for now. and on a Friday, on the weekend, over 9 days, South Africa is just a lot happier today than most other days. So Daphne Mokoena, thanks for your time. Most appreciated. And let's hear more good news stories from Ascom.
Thank you, sir.
There we are. It is good news, isn't it? I mean, long may this continue. Any comments on Eskom as it continues? And I think, as you explained, it's because systems are not getting on board. And that is, I think, well, that's certainly very good. WhatsApp 0614 104 107. However, let's get to the news now. It's 4 p.m. with Eva Chipa.
Thanks, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Zimbabwe introduces a new gold-backed currency and load shedding to remain suspended until further notice. Good afternoon. I'm Eva Chipa. Zimbabwe has, with immediate effect, introduced a new gold-backed currency called ZiG, which stands for Zimbabwe Gold. Central Bank Governor John Mushayavanu said the ZiG will be structured and set at a market-determined exchange rate. This is the latest attempt to try to stabilize the currency. It replaces the Zimbabwean dollar that has lost 3/4 of its value so far this year. Zimbabweans have 21 days from today to exchange old inflation-hit notes for the new currency. Power utility Eskom has announced that load shedding will remain suspended until further notice after 9 consecutive days of no load shedding. Eskom says this is because of sustained generation capacity and adequate emergency reserves. The power utility spokesperson, Daphne Mogwen.
Eskom will provide a system update on Sunday afternoon or communicate any significant changes should they occur. The evening peak demand tonight is expected to reach 25,465 megawatts.
The murder trial of 5 men accused of killing Collins Chabane Municipal Mayor Moses Maluleke has been adjourned to Monday in the High Court in Polokwane, Limpopo. The 5 allegedly shot and killed Maluleke at his home in July 2022. The trial adjourned for the defense lawyers to give their closing arguments. However, Maluleke's family is unhappy with the trial proceedings. Family spokesperson Etiken Maluleke explains.
I'm worried about the proceedings of the court. The court has been wrapped up. We don't know who the driver is of the car. Justice has not prevailed here. This case didn't go according to what we expected. As a family, we have been denied justice. Actually, I'm going to reopen this case. We are not happy about the proceedings.
Environmentalists are calling on government to stop Coral Brick from mining untapped surface coal deposits at its open-cast clay facility near the Ritvlei Nature Reserve in Pretoria. The factory discovered coal and had to ask permission from the department to take it out so that it can gain access to its clay reserves. It has sparked concerns over the impact the extraction activities might have on the environment. However, the company has sought to allay the fears, saying it's not in the coal mining business. CEO of Coral Brick, Nick Booth, says they have followed all legal processes to mitigate and prevent negative environmental impacts.
So we have developed a full environmental management plan in consultation with a number of consultants that we have submitted to the DMRE and to gain approval for that. We also have been required to amend our water license in order to comply with the Department of Water Affairs. We've also been requested to consult with the Department of the Environment, who are concerned about any impact we may have on the nature reserve.
And lastly, police in the Northern Cape have arrested a 52-year-old man for allegedly selling drugs. Police confiscated dagga worth approximately 130,000 rand and charged the accused with dealing in drugs. Police spokesperson Timothy Sam.
The members operationalized information regarding alleged drug sales at the Uppington taxi rank and found dagga that led them to an address in Pabalelo where the dagga is believed to have been stored. The team seized dagga valued at approximately 130,000 rands and charged the 35-year-old male suspect for dealing in drugs.
Recapping the top story at 4, Zimbabwe has with immediate effect introduced a new gold-backed currency called ZiG, which stands for Zimbabwe Gold. Central Bank Governor John Mushayavanu said the ZiG will be structured and set at a market-determined exchange rate. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
Coming up in your sports, Neymar unhappy with the Blitzboks performance in Hong Kong. Chiefs clash against Chippa United to go on despite Fleur's loss, and Quartararo extends contract with Yamaha. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good afternoon. Let's get you an update on Durban's highways and byways, especially the highways with all the roadworks going on. Looking okay if you're on the run to Durban, coming out of Pietermaritzburg. No major problems. That's good news. Nothing's broken down. Nothing's crashed in the roadworks. So it's a good clear run through. Umgeda Road, Spaghetti Junction section. It is slow today. We're queuing coming south from Inanda Road on the way to Spaghetti Junction, and northbound it's backlogging through 4 level as you get up through the roadworks towards the Westwood Mall area. M7 fairly slow if you're bluff bound. There's queued out towards Bel Air Road, and Durban Central CBD area all looking fairly busy as well. Motorists might be driving up through top end of Limpopo, the mountain pass just north of Makado. Just north of Makado on the M1 there's a truck crash there. You can expect some delays well into this evening, I would think. With that one, it still needs to be recovered. There's been a breakdown on Pretoria's N1 South near the R21, so coming through from Rigel Avenue, that's quite heavy. A major truck crash out on the R28 at Silver Star. That is backing up the whole Pinehaven area. The N14 onto Pinehaven down to the Silver Star Casino. That section of roadway is closed. A lot of traffic backlogging on local routes through the area, including Hendrik Potgieter heading west from Raamsak out towards that Pinehaven Junction. It's all very heavy in that part of town. Cape Town today, already the R300 queuing down to the Stock Road exit at Mitchell's Plain. There's no traffic lights as you come off at that off-ramp. And the N2 out of town looking busy through Hospital Bend as far as Bunga Avenue in the Langa area. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
No. No. I've heard on the radio stations, they're not filling vacancies, there is no money.
No, but that's my question to you. If they don't have the money, will the doctor work for Mahala?
Give me a chance. I'm going to give you a reason.
No. I'm asking you. I need to challenge your position.
No. Nobody works for free.
Right now, the National Pulse is boiling over.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
I wonder what's getting your pulse boiling over personally or nationally, right? I would think if you were in the Western Cape and you're a teacher and you've heard this teaching job cuts, I think your pulse would be boiling over. We're gonna talk about that pretty shortly, okay? Lots of great responses, and I really appreciate that. You can WhatsApp voice, WhatsApp text, WhatsApp voice note, many different ways to do this. And of course, you can also call in, which is great. So it allows you and I to have a conversation on air. 086 000 2032. Don't forget, when you do call in and you have a view, we must challenge that view, as I've said before. It's not a speech. We need to challenge your position, right? In fact, just talking about WhatsApps, Pumile is saying, Eskom employees are working around the clock to make sure that our country recovers. Big thanks, big ups to all employees. I think that's really great. Absolutely. More of that sort of really great stories that says, holy, we're getting things that are really working out. Now, I did mention to you, do not miss this. Pumzile Zonke is featured in our normal, it would be the Friday bonding session. We've just had a change of name because we've got to change a presenter, as you know. So it's really something I'm looking forward to as part of what is called a fireside chat, but much of the format would remain the same. What is concerning, however, is the issues of Western Cape teachers, and I understand that their jobs are on the line. So let's find out more about that with Sibongile Kwazi, who's the SATU, Democratic Teachers Union's Provincial Secretary in the Western Cape. Sibongile, appreciate your time and welcome to the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you. Right, give us some context here. Are jobs going to be cut? Is there a problem? Is there something looming?
Thank you very much, Ashraf. The challenge with the Western Cape Education Department is the termination of contract posts for all educators who were substituting educators who are in promotion posts.
Okay,
so
right. Carry
what
on.
has been happening before within WCED was that when there is an educator who is acting in either a deputy principal post or a departmental head post, once they move into that position, then a substitute would be employed in place of that educator who is acting in a senior post.
Okay, and that substitute will have a contract, right? Yeah.
Yes, it's a contract position.
Okay, so now what's happened?
So from the 1st of April, WCET has done away with all those contract positions, meaning that hundreds of teachers will be out of jobs. I want to maybe, the main concern is that WCET is very slow when it comes to the filling of contract or of advertised posts. We are sitting with vacancies that arose in 2022 that have not yet been filled, which means that we are going to add a burden to the schools because schools didn't really feel that in the past, but now they are going to feel it because all those people who were substituting those people are out of their jobs.
So let me understand this, right? Are you saying if they've ended these contract positions, will those positions of contracts end when their contracts come to an end? That means they've given them notice that you've got maybe 3 months to go, or has those contracts been terminated effective immediately?
Those contracts have been terminated, but the schools knew beforehand because this circular was issued at the end of last year.
Okay, and did the teachers know? Like, when did the teachers finally get notice that your last day is coming up, like today?
They were told in most schools when the schools were about to reopen or after the reopening of schools.
Okay, so they were given some degree of notice. I mean, that's what I'm just trying to understand. Now, I understand from the Western Cape Education Department, they are suggesting that we can discuss the procedures, but the nub of the problem is they don't have the money. They can't afford to carry the paying of these contract teachers. If you sort out budgets, if somebody sorts out budgets for them, they'll pay them and they'll retain them. They can't at the moment.
The argument we are posing with the employer is that they committed that they are going to maintain the staff establishments for this year. But when they terminate the post of these contract educators, it means that they are not maintaining the staff establishment of those schools. Let me make an example. One school has just been appraised has 6 people who are acting in promotion posts. So that means that school has lost 6 teachers. What does it mean for the rest of the staff? It means that the load of those teachers must be split amongst the other teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And we already have overflowing classrooms in the Western Cape, which means that it's going to be a chaos in those classrooms.
Okay, so what is SATU going to do about it? What can you do?
The employer consulted us on this, but because they are not on the cold face in the classroom, they don't understand the impact of this. Let me just give you one of the solutions that they are giving schools, that they must embark on what was called the TREP during the COVID-19 lockdown, which is temporary revised education program, where learners attend school on a rotational basis. You remember during COVID that some learners came on certain days and others on certain days.
Mm-hmm.
So they are advocating that schools must now implement that temporary revised education program called the TREP.
But would that mean that existing teachers would earn less money as well, or not?
No, they will keep their salaries as they are. But the problem we have with this implementation of TREP is that the same employer has implemented a program called Back on Track to regain learning losses due to COVID-19. On one hand, they are regaining learning losses due to COVID-19, But at the same breath, they are advising schools to implement a program similar to the lockdown program.
Okay.
Which means that there will be more learning losses for the working class schools again.
Okay.
And
So just very quickly in 30 seconds, what else can SATU do about it? What I'm saying, I understand you have proposals. Can you do anything else? Just very quickly.
What we have advised the employer to do is to suspend the board program and use that money to fund educator posts. We've also advised them to stop or pause the program for systemic evaluation, because they have systemic evaluation every year and it costs a lot of money. If they can pump that money into ensuring that there are contract educators at schools, it would make a great difference.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you for your time. Sibongile Kwazi, the SATU's Provincial Secretary in the Western Cape. In fact, you may want to stay on the line anyway, Sibongile, just to listen to my conversation with Bronagh Hammond, who is the spokesperson for the Western Cape Education Department, which we will do in a moment. Let me remind you, particularly if you're a teacher from the Western Cape, you must have an opinion on this. Well, let me hear your opinion. You can actually call in 086 000 2032. Let me feel your pulse regarding this issue, or you can also WhatsApp, text or voice note me.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, Bronagh Hammond with me, spokesperson for the Western Cape Education Department. Bronagh, I appreciate your time and thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon to your listeners.
Good afternoon. I think, for some people it's like not a good afternoon if they're a contract teacher in the Western Cape and they suddenly don't have a job. So they can't go to the Western, to the waterfront or one of those big drives this weekend and go and splurge. They're counting their cents.
Well, I've just been listening to your conversation, and I just can't get over the miscommunication or the misunderstanding on Circular 34. First of all, this was communicated in November last year. Our contract posts no contract posts were terminated and said, okay, well, on the 31st of March, you're without a job. If you get a contract to work on a site, or to work on a film set, or to work in a restaurant, or wherever it may be, and they say that you got a contract from the 31st of June to the 31st of March, you know that your contract is ending. So that's one thing. We did not terminate or, tell people
Okay.
that...
That's one of the points that I wanted to find out, whether those contracts were terminated, ahead of time or not.
No.
So you're saying they would run their course, right? Yeah.
No, they did. They ran their course. And then in November, we then issued Circular 34. And basically, we said to our schools that you can convert your posts to permanent posts. So those in contract posts, if you wish to convert them to permanent posts, because we do want to get our teachers permanent, because it is much more cost effective and it creates more stability in schools. And we got 3,100 teachers that had been converted during this process. And then we have got a further 800 that are being converted currently, which we do need to expedite as a department. I agree with that. And then 2,000 other contracts. They could make nominations. Schools could make nominations to extend those contracts beyond the 31st of March up until the 31st of December, and we had about 2,200 schools doing that. So there's a big other story to tell in this whole thing.
Okay, but so let me understand this. Okay, fine. Contracts have come up. You've given schools the option to hire, to convert them into full time if they choose to, if there's a vacancy, for example, right? But at this point in time, then, are there teachers, contract teachers, who are not going to work on Monday because they have nowhere to go?
Well, their contract has expired. Their date has expired. So, yes, there are contract teachers. But then, as I said, schools did have the opportunity to convert those into permanent posts. There were processes involved, and some of those contract teachers did not qualify for a permanent post. And in other cases, they went through the process and then they weren't selected by the school. And in other cases, some schools didn't go through that process. And we need to
how many teachers affected by that? That means they do not have a job now.
We are still collating that. It's not that teachers are without a job, and I need to make this very clear. We have 34,116 teachers in the Western Cape that are on our post-establishment. We have still got 34,416 teachers on our post establishment. We are encouraging schools to get teachers into those posts. It's not taking away the post. We're not decreasing the number of teachers in the Western Cape by any means, not at all. We are trying to get those posts into permanent posts at this stage. The big thing that is being effective is when you have a substitute teacher for when someone is sick. That has now gone from 15 days to 30 days. That is the main difference. But in terms of us terminating contracts, that is just is completely.
So Satu's concerned there will be sort of vacuums, of teachers. You're saying that that's misguided. That's not true.
There is vacuums, and I do agree with that. And the reason why there's vacuums is because maybe some schools have submitted their conversion papers very late. Some of them are coming in by the 28th of March. So we're trying to process those. As I said, there are 800 that we need to now expedite as fast as possible. So those are permanent teachers. And those teachers will be made permanent in our system, which is better off for them as well. Then the next thing is that, some schools didn't go for a conversion because perhaps they have advertised their post. They're expecting that a teacher from another school has been nominated, and they're excited for her to come into that post because that post is alive and well. Then they didn't extend that contract. So then that is where a vacuum exists, and this is when we're asking schools, please contact us if those cases do happen. Then we need to expedite that nomination process. And I do agree with Ms. Kwazi that sometimes our recruitment processes could work faster, and that is something that we are definitely working on. But again, no decrease in the number of teachers in the Western Cape. We are trying to protect them with all costs. Okay,
you've also made the point about this miscommunication between, which I would think is between your department and SATU, right? Now, if it's as clear-cut as this, and it doesn't sound very, very hazy to me, then why is there a miscommunication? I mean, who's to blame for this?
I'm very confused because Ms. Kwazi has been engaged I've sat in meetings, where SATU's been present and all the other unions, where we discussed this issue at length. It's come up on all the principals associated because there were concerns raised about it. There were issues. We released another circular explaining and clarifying certain points about this what's happening. And I think, at the end of the day, SATU is they've got their constituents, which are their teachers. We have got our constituents, which are both our teachers and our learners, and we need to protect both. And we've got an 817 million rand deficit that we have been given by National Treasury because of the wage agreement, and that's what we have to afford to pay our teachers, and we're not willing to lose any teachers at this stage.
So I mean, initially you made the point that nobody's going to lose their jobs. None of the teachers will lose their jobs, and in fact you're encouraging the contract workers to convert into permanent staff, and it's a lot more efficient, and all the reasons you mentioned before, right? But are you suggesting that is the primary reason for these changes efficiency and better productivity, or is it actually driven by budget cuts, which you've now alluded to?
We have been embarking on a conversion process because obviously a teacher that's in a permanent position in a school, it does create more stability. We know that. And it is also more cost effective to have a permanent teacher in post-level 1 position. So we are encouraging that. We have been encouraging that before Circular 34, before our budget cuts, and so forth. But then I think the big thing that was major difference was this substitution post. When your teacher has gone off sick and she's off for more than 15 days, and you can get a substitute, and now it's been extended to 30 days. And I think that is where
So that's where you're going to get this vacuum. If it's up to 30 days, if a teacher is absent for whatever reason, there will be no replacement. That means how then, in practical terms, in the classroom, do you plug that hole?
Yeah, that is an issue, and that's where we need our principals to manage that process. But again, if there's a long-term issue or if there's a major issue, where they need to contact our
How do the principals intend to manage the process? I'm sure you've spoken to them about it already.
Well, it is, every week, you have a teacher that's absent, could be potentially absent in the school, and how do you manage that process for that week? A person, we've had many bugs flying around, and a teacher needs to manage that. The problem is that we also then, our concern lies with, our foundation phase learners, such a critical time of learning, and then our grade 12s, of course, if you've got a grade 12 geography teacher off, for 4 weeks, then that's serious. So those kind of things do need to be managed, but it is something in a reality that our schools face every day.
But last, to go back to the point, how much of a contributory factor are the budget cuts in terms of what has just happened?
It is the contributory factor. We only got 64% of what was agreed to in the wage deal, and we had to come up with the rest of the money, leaving us with the 817 million rand deficit.
And you're saying that's a national budget cut?
That was a national budget cut, and then we only got 64% of what was
okay.
agreed to.
I take it if that's the case. I mean that national budget cut wouldn't only apply to the Western Cape; it'll probably apply to every other province as well, isn't it?
Yes, other provinces are struggling as well, no doubt about it. But, we all have to look at how much, what we can contribute in terms of, what we're paying and what we, all the programs. And we can't just cut programs like our Back on Track program just because of this. We still need to look after the needs of our learners at the same time. And by doing this, we are trying to protect our teachers. That's the main thing, is that we do not want to cut any posts.
Okay.
We are desperate for more posts, so we definitely not cutting posts.
All right. That's where we can leave it. Bronner Hammond, the spokesperson for the Western Cape Education Department. Appreciate your time. Before that, we had the SAPTU representative, Sibongile Kwazi. You, as a member of the audience, you may have your own views about this. Budget cuts, cut education. That'll solve a problem. Just think about what the priorities are of our country. Does it get your blood boiling or your pulse racing? It certainly should, and you can tell me what it is that really gets your pulse racing by WhatsApping, text or voice notes 0614 104 107. In fact, we've got a caller from the Western Cape. In fact, not from the Western Cape, from Bloemfontein. Magdalene, appreciate your time. Welcome to the National Pulse.
Afternoon, sir. I'm sorry, I don't get your name now.
It's Ashraf, but I've certainly got yours, and that's what matters. Hello, Magdalene.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to say, it seems as if ANC is now lamenting what it has been up to, because the historically disadvantaged people were encouraged to go on teachers, and education was regarded as the highest point to can at least get employed. But all of a sudden, even the teachers are highly disadvantaged. So where are we going to? What are we heading to now with ANC? People, it's not that I'm trying to discourage the people. I'm with you to can encourage the people to say, on the 29th of May, let's go to the polls and try by all means to vote for something which will bring back our dignity. Because previously, I'm not trying to bring apartheid as something better. No, it has never been better for us. That's why we strived for democracy. So, but we thought with democracy, everything which was honored or seen as better thing to can bring a better future, we thought it will be highly recognized in the democracy. But still, education is something which is highly undermined in the democratic area.
Well, I agree about the undermine, Magdalene. I mean, it is a priority. It is the one thing that should enable South Africa to compete globally with the world. We cut on education. We cut our level of competency in competing with the rest of the world. Magdalene, thanks for that call. Anything else you wanted to say? Yeah? Okay.
Asha.
Yeah.
Asha, the thing is that I'm aware that the engineers, even the doctors, are undermined. Now we're undermining the educators because it's starting in the Western Cape. So it will be nationally now. You get within a short space of time. So it's high time that we open our eyes and say no to something which doesn't bring something which brings which doesn't bring dignity into our lives and better lives.
All right, Magdalene, appreciate your call. Thank you for that. Love the fact that people are calling from anywhere around the country, and feel free to do that anytime. And you know that, be it Bloemfontein or Cape Town or Johannesburg, Pretoria, Polokwane, Gqeberha, East London, wherever it is, call. And by the way, you know that often I've put out this call. If you'd like to send a picture of you as a listener locked in with your dial to SAFM, well, please send that picture. It's Friday. Come on. We haven't done it for a couple of days. Let's see what you've got. Where you're listening from. Tell me where you're listening from. Tell me what you do in terms of your work. And if you've got a picture locked to the SAFM dial, that's even better. Probably going to ask the same thing from Madhu, because he speaks to us from the newsroom. In fact, we get to Eva. We'll get to Marupi later when I get a chance to ask him. Say, take a picture of you in the newsroom. But Eva may do the same thing. It's 4:30.
Thanks, Ashraf. Will definitely do that. In your news making headlines for now, the Department of Home Affairs has announced that their offices will be open for 5 hours from 8 a.m. on Saturdays from tomorrow to the 25th of May for collecting IDs, handling new applications, and issuing temporary identity certificates, which will be available. This comes as preparations gather pace ahead of the May 29th general elections. In other news, the EFF's Floyd Shivambu says the party will continue throwing its weight behind ousted AIC Mayor Sivuyile Ngotwana to lead the city of Ekurhuleni. He was removed as Ekurhuleni Mayor last month in a motion of no confidence sponsored by Action SA. And lastly, Zimbabwe has with immediate effect introduced a new gold-backed currency called ZiG, which stands for Zimbabwe Gold. Mudupi Makalimela will have the next full bulletin at 5. For SFM News, good afternoon. I'm Eva Chipa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Bit of rain around parts of the country today. Take it easy if it's wet where you are. Increase the follow distance, flick the lights on, and watch your speeds as well. Leaving Pretoria, big backlogs. The M1 South, the breakdown at the R21, traffic all the way back through to Atterbury Road. R21 queuing at Clayville. That, of course, is into the roadworks. And a major truck crash out of Pinehaven this afternoon down by Silver Star. The R28 coming off the N14 is closed. There's all sorts of pressure there. The N14 arriving from Muldersdrift, Hendrik Portgieter, Ramesuck through towards Pinehaven, coming north up from Krugersdorp into the area. It's all heavily backed up. Crossing to Durban, breakdowns both sides of the N2, north and southbound, in amongst the roadworks at Mgeni Road, Spaghetti Junction section. So it's all very slow getting through there. Even the N3 outbound queuing from Sherwood just to get into the N2 to run northbound. Cape Town, a broken down vehicle on Plattercliff Hill. It's on the side of the road, but it is causing a backlog just leaving town past that one. The R300 queuing down towards Mitchell's Plain, towards the Stock Road exit. No traffic lights there. And the M7 into Mitchell's Plain, no lights at Samora Michelle. So that's a big backlog as you line up from Govan Becky Bridge in towards the R300. That M7 going south looking particularly heavy. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, big sporting day. What's coming up?
Well, let's talk all things rugby this hour. Philip Snyman says that he's very pleased to see the Blitzboks secure place in the Hong Kong Sevens quarterfinals, but he says he wants a strong finish to the pool stage against Samoa tomorrow. The Springbok Sevens went unbeaten on day one of the Hong Kong tournament today with convincing pool victories over Ireland 22-17, and they beat Spain 24-10, all but securing them a spot in the quarterfinals.
No, I'm very happy with the result. We said, first of all, we want to go out and start strong against Ireland. They're a very quality team. They show they 1 or 2 on the rankings, and the guys really came out firing, especially that first half. In the second half, we lost a little bit of control with 1 or 2 errors and a red card. But overall, the guys really stuck to it, and they fight up until the end to pull off the win. The game against Spain now, exactly the same. We struggled to got ball, and we always knew if we have ball in hand, we're going to punish teams. And then we took control of the moment we got the hands on the ball. Our playmakers hurt them on the outside. So very happy as a coach, and I think the guys really played for each other, and they played for that Springbok Sevens jersey.
In the meantime, former Wallabies captain Michael Hooper admitted feeling very nervous after making a successful Sevens debut today, with the start of a journey that he hopes will take him from Hong Kong to the Olympics. The veteran of 125 tests came on in the second half of a 12-0 victory over Australia, over Fiji to launch their title charge for the Hong Kong Crown, the most prestigious in Sevens rugby. The 32-year-old has switched to Sevens after the loose forward was axed from the Wallaby squad by then coach Eddie Jones for last year's 15-a-side Rugby World Cup. Then in football, Orlando Pirates coach Jose Rivero has made a desperate plea to the media, imploring them to continue to highlight the plight of poor officiating in the PSL, following the Buccaneers' 1-0 draw against Morocco Swallows in the DStv Premiership, where they had a goal disallowed. In his post-match press conference, he urged the media to ask questions of the deteriorating standard of refereing in the country.
Our obligation, like I said already 1 week ago, the referees are not camping with us, they are not training with us during the week. Our energy must be for them play football, for me to help them to play good football. And then luckily we have the journalists to analyze, to find conclusions, to maybe put some light.
Meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs' game against Chippa United will go ahead tomorrow despite Amakosi mourning the tragic passing of their defender Luke Fleers. The game takes place at the Buffalo City Stadium at 3 p.m. Fleers, who was yet to make his Chiefs debut since joining as a free agent in October, he was actually going to make his debut at this particular game after losing his life in a hijacking on Wednesday night. And Chief Sporting Director Kaizer Mtaung Jr. says that the club was going to ask for a postponement, but says that they're going ahead to honour their fallen soldier.
Chief, obviously the guys are committed. The guys are committed more than ever. They like I said, understand the opportunity they have. And like we said earlier, it was a case of, guys, you got to let us know how you're feeling. Raise your head at, it hurts. And they understand that they have a responsibility not just to their families, but their responsibility to the greater Corsi nation, all these millions of fans who support them on a daily basis. They have a responsibility to Luke's family, to Luke himself, and they took it upon themselves to say that we are ready to fight, and we are lifting our heads and we're marching forward. So they're committed, and they're ready to face Chippa United this weekend.
Ending things off with MotoGP news. 2021 MotoGP World Champion Fabio Quartararo extended his contract with Yamaha for another 2 years. The 24-year-old has won 8 MotoGP races and been on the podium 21 times since his debut for them in the elite level in 2019. He finished runners-up in the title race in 2022, but the team's performance slipped last year, with the Frenchman making the top 3 just 3 times and ended up 10th.
Just a quick one. So Banyana plays now, right?
Yes, at
5
6.
o'clock. 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
just quick implications. I mean, they're playing Nigeria. I get that. What does this mean?
So they are fighting for a spot in the Olympics. This is the first leg, so it would do well for them if they do well in Nigeria, and then they're going to come back.
So a 2-legged match, and the winner goes straight to the Olympic Games in France.
Yeah.
They better win. Come on.
Crossing my fingers.
Absolutely. I mean, they are the African champions already, right?
Literally.
Well, there you are. Remember we beat Morocco, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. What a match. And that was the time, a long time ago, well, a year ago, where it equalized this gap between Bafana
and
the girls. It was like, that's our national team. Right. And the crowd was just amazing. So
However, truth be told, Banyana did lead the way.
Well, I mean, that's great. No, but historically there's Bafana, but I'm saying it shows you if a women's team, even in cricket, for example, performs at the top level, we then don't care who it is. And that's what you want. You just want to support the national team. And I just love that. Absolutely. Thank you for that. More to come with sport, I think, later on as well. By the way, there's a couple of voice notes that people have commented in. But before we get that, let's get to the markets with Paswani Ipalele. In fact, we're going to cross to the markets in a moment.
The city of Cairo will be divided into 2 when Zamalek SC confronts their Modern Future. Zamalek strongly believe they are the kings of the city, but Modern Future want to display something special to conquer the Cairo derby. This is the second leg of the CAF Confederation Cup quarterfinal. Catch Zamalek SC versus Modern Future, Sunday 7 April at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
South Africa is facing an increase in people diagnosed with non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, cancers, hypertension, lung problems and obesity. This also increases the number of people living with these diseases and mental health.
Many people living with these preventable diseases may not be immediately aware unless they go for health screening and testing.
It is our responsibility to invest in our healthier future through regular physical activity, healthy diets and avoiding risky health behaviors such as alcohol and tobacco use.
The Department of Health urges people to go for regular health screening for early detection and effective treatment if they are diagnosed with any of these conditions.
This message is brought to you by the National Department of Health.
Right, this should really get you excited, I think. The Masked Singer, South Africa, that is coming to a mall near you. Now, you can join in all the fun from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. at the Maponya Mall. That happens from the 21st to the 24th of March, firstly, and then it continues. Well, that's happened already, right? Then moving on to the important dates for you to make a note of: the Blue Route Mall in Cape Town from the 4th to the 7th of April. So that's now. Meet the Masks, win awesome prizes, channel your inner image or your inner mega star with season 2 of The Masked Singer South Africa, only on S3. Open up, yeah. Maybe I'll go.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get an update on the markets with Paswane Mpatlele, who's the Senior Portfolio Manager at the Makwe Fund Managers. Good afternoon and great chatting to you, Paswane.
Afternoon, Ashraf, and happy Friday to all your listeners.
Absolutely. Well, maybe you've got some good news for us. Let's get the numbers, local and global.
Coming into the market, Ashraf, I must tell you that the big report that came out was the U.S. job report. It came in better than expected, as the U.S. economy just added more jobs than expected, helping the unemployment rate to fall to 3.8%, while on their wages front, we saw that it was a small increase compared to last month, and this has helped some increase in inflation concerns, and including other factors. When you think of oil that is past $90, and the food price index has risen higher when you think of how vegetable oil, dairy and meat prices have risen. But as a result of these developments, job reports being better than expected, we saw the long-term bond yields, which look at the growth outlook, are rising back higher to around 4.3, as investors now are on the side that they believe that growth will remain, and this has supported the dollar and reinforcing bets that there is no need to be rushing into interest rate cuts. And today's development, Ashraf, is seeing that it's providing more of evidence around the global economy that we are actually going to be looking like we are transmitting into an environment of higher growth and inflation, especially into this quarter 2 we're in. And that means for implications on monetary policy that interest rates will remain higher for longer. The June cuts right now are more or less on a 50-50. Investors and traders are now looking towards September, maybe the start. But with added geopolitical tensions, when you think of Iran might possibly attack during the weekend, Ukraine is trying to join NATO, it has just increased volatility, and therefore so we're seeing a mixed picture on the global scale. Looking at the U.S. markets there, Ashraf, we're looking at the Nasdaq that's up 0.8, S&P up 0.5, Dow up 0.3. Meanwhile, in Europe, the FTSE was down 1%. The DAX and CAC were down 1.3%. Locally, we've eased some of our losses. The JSE was down 1%, due to resources down 1.5. Industrials and finances just down around 0.9. And looking into the commodity market, we're seeing the likes of gold having to take some of that positive relationship with its dollar to its benefit, and the heightened geopolitical tensions we are going into the weekend, helping gold to rise up by 0.5 to $2,303 an ounce. Meanwhile, oil was up by 0.2 at $90.95. Platinum was down 2.3% at $920 an ounce. And quickly going into that currency space, the rand was slightly weaker as the dollar made some strength back of that report. The rand against the dollar sits around 18.68, rand against the euro 20.18, rand against the pound 23.53.
Okay, that's anything else you need to add to that?
We're looking at a positive quarter 2, so let's not frown upon anything that is developing into other countries.
All right, but I just hate the fact that, when you have problems in other countries, somebody sneezes and we catch a cold, and I don't like that, but that's the reality, and I get that. Paswane, thanks for your time. Have a great weekend to you and your family. Let's move on. In fact, there's an interesting tweet saying from Philip saying, Can we get school principals to call in and give us their experience? The unions and the department could be misleading us, referring in this case here to the Department of Education in the Western Cape. And maybe got a point. Well, teachers, what's your thoughts around what's been happening around these contracts that have come to an end, and many of the teachers then out of a job or not? And if you have an opinion, well, let me know. 086 000 2032. Otherwise, WhatsApp. Voice notes 0614 104 107. You know that you don't have to just listen 104 107 around the country. You can also catch us streaming live in sound, audio, as well as visually. In fact, if you go to the SAFM website or even on our X platform, you'll actually see me visually, and I'm going to give you a thumbs up if you're actually catching us, just to make the point, okay? Right, let's get some voice notes.
Good afternoon, Ashraf Garda. Teto speaking here in Shepstone. Yeah, now the ANC sees that they are failing to give us electricity. Now the new parties say they are going to finish this within 3 to 6 months. Now they are afraid that they have failed us. So they are trying to bring back the electricity. I thank you, Teto speaking.
They're trying to bring back the electricity. Well, they need to bring back the electricity no matter what, because, I mean, it has affected every aspect of our lives. I mean, I know yesterday I heard a caller for an entrepreneur saying, you cannot imagine on the business show coming up after 6, the impact that it's had on my ability to run my company. So it's not just cosmetic stuff. It really does affect us.
Good afternoon, SAFM and to listeners. It's Salvan Gamda from Durban. Mr. Ashraf Garda, with regard to Eskom, we were promised by the minister 2 years ago that Eskom will be split into 3 different entities, allowing private investors to come on board. I feel by doing this so that with private investors, whatever budgets allocated will be strictly adhered to, and there'll be a lot of processes involved with the issuing of tenders and contracts. So I'd just like some feedback with regard to splitting Eskom into 3 different entities. Thank you.
All right. So, well, you know, they say lots of different things, isn't it? At the moment, if the lights are on even for a week, just be grateful. I'm not suggesting you're wrong about the splitting. You know, there's so many things happening. There's also been these issues of alternative energy supplies that the country has got to get on track, whether it's from traditional coal or something new. Either way, whatever it is, we as a country needs to get sorted out. But I think a lot may and may not happen, depending on what happens with the election. This is also what happens. You know, things do change. You know, yes, contracts stay in place, but policy decisions can change dramatically when an election happens and the ruling power, the ruling government is not the same. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if it does happen, that could well change. Okay, there's some more.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, I don't know how we are as South Africans. You know, I don't know whether we suffer from amnesia or we go with the flow most of the time. We all know that during Zuma's tenure, last 3 years of his tenure, there was no load shedding. And the load shedding resumed or started again as soon as the President Ramaphosa took over the office. And we also been told during what they were spending in diesel in Zuma era, in a year, currently they're spending in 3 months. So I'm sure we don't have load shedding. We appreciate the suspension, but I know we're going hard on diesel. That itself is going to come back and bite us in terms of tariffs.
It's going to bite us? Okay. Let's see what happens with diesel. Either way, I think there are some important decisions that are being made, that should have been made 10, 15 years ago, and we are being impacted by that. We just want to get things right, isn't it? I'm sure you'd agree with me.
Masanda wanna trust their creativity to ensure Yanga gets nothing from Mzansi's capital city. But the gentlemen from the east want to leave Kabuyelo in tears. This is the second leg quarterfinal battle of the CAF Champions League. Experience Africa's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns versus Young Africans, on Friday 5 April at 8 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Last year, the Mars singer hit South Africa like a storm.
This year, the Masked Singer South Africa returns with 16 huge celebrities hidden behind 16 humongous masks. Get ready to be amazed and astonished with brand new masks and performances that are going to blow your mind. Don't miss the biggest television event since Season 1. The Masked Singer South Africa Season 2 premieres on S3 Saturday 6 April at 6:30 p.m.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So I tell you what, Aldrin's always had this feature called the bonding session. Now, I'm still going to do some bonding. We're just going to rebrand the bonding into a fireside chat. In essence, it's very, very similar. Okay? And my guest today is coming up after 5 is Phumzile Zonke. You may remember him as a former SABC 1 presenter. I don't know whether that ever leaves you or not, right? There's a whole lot of other things that you've got here. But Phumzile, let me just first get you to tease your own slot coming up just now. Okay? So why should people listen to us just now?
Well, first and foremost, thank you very much, Ashraf. I'm really excited to see you. And wow, I was happy to see you back. And I was like, wow.
I came back especially for you. I thought like on Friday today, I need to be here. So.
How privileged I am. But anyway, what I want to say is that listeners are going to have a wonderful show. And I'm grateful to be here, and it's going to be very nice.
Now we've also asked you, to pick out a topic.
Yes.
That's not my choice, by the way. It's the guest privilege, okay? Because you're going to co-host with me. So what topic have you picked out?
So, I've been curious when Ashraf. There's this thing called pretty privilege, and I was wondering, is this thing a thing?
I don't know what's pretty privilege.
Is it even a fact or is it a fiction? I mean, we hear a lot about it on social media platforms where if you are beautiful, if you are sexy, if you are this physically in terms of aesthetics, you are pretty much likely to have followers into the northern ends of millions. But if you don't look in a certain way, there are certain things that maybe don't work out for you. And I was like, wouldn't that be interesting to ask our SAFM listeners? Is pretty privilege a fact or a fiction when it comes to opportunities in South Africa? And if you think so, regardless of whether you think it's a fact or it's a fiction, why do you think so? And I think it's going to be fun.
Bottom line to it is the fact that some people are, in inverted commas, better looking than other people. Does that give you an advantage? You have an opinion. I'm sure you do.
I think it's true. It goes without saying, especially in the society that we live in, that the prettier you are, there's a high chance. And I'm not saying that it's always the case, but there's a higher chance for you to get whatever that you want. However, it's not always the case. It's not always the case. And I guess there's some people that have stories where I've heard one where they lost the job to someone who looked better than them, but they knew that they were more qualified.
But that's the key part, isn't it? That are people gaining jobs or losing jobs outside of a space? We're not talking about beauty contests. I understand that's different. But, whatever, being an advocate, being a talk show host, right? Yeah. Purely on the basis that some people look prettier than us. Is that happening?
I think it is.
Okay. Well,
I can see someone who's been applying for the past 5 years.
Well, it's not happening. Yeah, I can just imagine. Okay, let's leave it at that because I want people to actually tell us now. So I'll tell you what you do. You can't call in now. Don't call in now, but you can certainly call in after 5 when we explore this conversation. With Phumzile and I, but you can send a voice note like immediately. There's nothing stopping you if your pulses are racing and your blood's boiling, and you say, whichever way, I want to make a point about this again. I can't wait. Well, you know what you have to do? Do it right away. Just message me now. Voice notes, I think, will even reflect your feelings better than even text, okay? 0614 104 107. 0614 104 107. What do you make of what's it? Pretty privilege, is that right?
Yep. Pretty privilege.
Never knew about that.
You look so beautiful, by the way.
I heard of affirmative action or AA, but pretty privilege? This is something new. Either way, we'll find out about it. Okay, looking forward to that conversation with Phumzile Zonke. He's probably going to do some extra research on that. In the meantime, research in terms of the impact of the elections economically, I think is something that you need to pay attention to. We have Isa Mslanga on the line who's going to talk to us about just that. He's the chief economist at Rand Merchant Bank. Isa, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. Hello, do I have you there?
Yes, you have me. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, much appreciated, right? So here we are. I mean, we're spending so much time about the elections, and who's going to win and who's not going to win, and whether there's a coalition or no coalition. But in fact, your angle is particularly important, and it needs to be punctuated about the impact it has and possibly already has in the volatile period that election is.
Indeed, and it's not just an SA story. It's what we see across emerging markets overall. When we have elections that are generally expected to produce a potential different outcome than what we have seen before, there is a rise in uncertainty. And that's what we have currently. Mm-hmm. The expectations of potential coalitions with the ruling party or even with other parties that might have an orthodox economic policy. That introduces uncertainty in terms of the type of government and therefore the type of economic policy that are going to be implemented that will have a bearing on business confidence.
Okay, so a person listening to us, like a citizen on the street, they may listen to you talking and say, that's highbrow stuff, man. That's not my business. I haven't got time to worry about that. I just need to get a job and I need to get bread on the table and, food and whatever. And are you going to suggest that they need to pay attention to what you're saying? Because it does impact on them.
It does have an impact. For instance, if we look since 1999, all the local government elections or general elections in some years have had the currency depreciate by a maximum of 20% because of the outcome or driven by the outcome of the elections. But we have also seen currency appreciate by close to 28% just after elections. And the depreciating currency means all the imports becomes much more expensive, and therefore the prices of goods in general tend to increase. And if they do increase, the central bank will then follow suit and hike interest rates, which increases the cost of servicing the mortgage bond, or it could be a repayment on a car. That impacts every person that have debt which they have financed.
Basically, so it makes us poorer, right?
Absolutely, it makes us poorer.
Yeah.
Indeed.
How do we insulate against it? I mean, you made the point. I mean, there are many elections. I can't remember the number. It was mentioned the other day. There are many elections around the world over this year. But from a South African perspective, if it's going to happen, and we need an election because it's very important, but at the same time, if the elections are fraught with this instability in terms of the markets, how do we insulate against that?
Look, I think the first one is to learn from what we have seen in other elections. But the polls that are coming out, they are so wide in terms of their expectations. But if you look at the 2019 elections, for instance, the polls have been, the averages have been much more closer to the actual outcomes. So don't believe the extreme numbers which the polls are saying. So if any number comes and say the ruling party is going to get 70%, or if the ruling party is going to get 30%, it's likely to be wrong. That's what we have learned in the past, general elections. Extremes are far away from what we normally get. The averages are closer to what we actually get. And if we take that stance, it's potentially safe and plausible to assume somewhere between 45 and 50%. That's where the average of current polls sits. Mm-hmm. So nothing is going to break. But even that said, if from a business perspective, you have to be aware about the potential swings in the currency, and if you can hedge the currency out, if you can hedge the interest rate risk, do so. You are primarily running business, not necessarily trading currency.
Yeah, it's a good point. What normally happens, do the markets follow bad or good political governance, or does the impact of instability, political instability, follow markets, whether the markets are buoyant or they're not? What happens first?
Look, the market cares about the type of economic policies that will be implemented post the elections. And if it is a political party that is known to be business friendly, that is known to enable business to operate, the market will be bullish, which means it will react positively. In that environment, you tend to see strengthening of the currency and a decline in bond yields, which means it becomes cheaper to borrow. And as a result, it becomes cheaper to finance investments. But if the perception is that there are political parties that are likely to come in that have radical policies that may inhibit investments or that makes it difficult for businesses to operate, then the market might sell off, which would imply an increase in cost for business, and therefore the macroeconomic environment will also be impacted negatively going forward.
Therefore, let's say in 30 seconds, what's the one final point that you'd like to punctuate?
Polls, they matter, but currently we don't have good data in SA, so don't believe the extremes. The averages are likely to be your guide, but even that said, if you are a business, hedge out the currency risk, hedge out the interest rate risk.
Yeah, and what can the public do, I suppose, to the businesses? Leave it at that. Isam Klanga, thank you for your time. Certainly got us thinking about the volatility of the markets or the economy in an election season, and it's certainly what we're going to experience, if not already happened, it's certainly going to happen soon. He's the chief economist at Rand Merchant Bank. Okay, let's get to in fact, we spoke about Medupi earlier on to say, well, hold it. We've got Eva to take a picture and either tweet it out to us on our X platform or on social media like Facebook, but we'll probably do the same thing with Medupi as well. It's 5 o'clock. Here's the news.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. I'll see what I can do. The top stories this hour: Home Affairs to open on Saturdays, and Zimbabwe introduces a new gold-backed currency. Very good afternoon. We start with election news. Home Affairs has announced that their offices will be open for 5 hours from 8 a.m. on Saturdays from the 6th of April to the 25th of May for collecting IDs, handling new applications, and issuing temporary identity certificates. This comes as preparations gather pace ahead of the May 29th elections. According to department spokesperson Sia Qoza, the offices will also address issues related to duplicates, amendments, rectifications, and cases involving individuals incorrectly marked as deceased with the necessary supporting documents provided.
In this period, the offices will open for 7 Saturdays, with only the 27 April 2024 excluded. Mobile offices are also scheduled to return to deliver IDs in the remote areas where they took applications from. Local offices, working with stakeholders that include councillors, will communicate the dates, times and venues of those visits.
The EFF says it'll continue throwing its weight behind ousted AIC Mayor Sivuyile Ngodwana to lead the city of Ekurhuleni. Ngodwana was removed as Ekurhuleni mayor last month in a motion of no confidence sponsored by Action SA. Ekurhuleni has been without a mayor since then. The EFF's Floyd Shivambu has described Ngodwana's removal as nothing but misguided excitement from opposition parties.
So we are still firm as the EFF that when we reconstitute council, let's put the mayor back in office and then constitute the mayoral committee, because there truly was no crisis in the city of Ekurhuleni. There is crisis in Tshwane. There is crisis in Buffalo City. There is crisis in Nelson Mandela Bay, which can be contained, but there was no crisis in the city of Ekurhuleni. There was just some misguided excitement that came from certain sections, which I think will have to be contained so that we constitute a stable government.
Zimbabwe has with immediate effect introduced a new gold-backed currency called the ZiG, which stands for Zimbabwe Gold. Central Bank Governor John Mushayavanyu says the ZiG will be structured and set at a market-determined exchange rate. This is the latest attempt to try to stabilize the currency. It replaces the Zimbabwean dollar that has lost 3/4 of its value so far this year. Zimbabweans have 21 days from today to exchange the old inflation-hit notes for the new currency. And back home, civil society organization Media Monitoring Africa has expressed concern that the SABC bill has yet to be approved by Parliament, especially relating to the public broadcasters' funding model. The organization and the SOS Support Public Broadcasting Coalition have called for the withdrawal of the bill, citing its failure to address a crucial aspect to help the SABC become financially stable. Yesterday, the Communications Department revealed that the passing of the bill will not happen under the 6th administration, as Parliament will not have gotten to it before the elections. Media Monitoring Africa's William Bird.
SABC is being asked to operate as though it was 20 years ago. And now what you've got is the SABC being expected to function in an increasingly digital environment, to use an advertising model that is simply not working anymore because the environment has changed so dramatically. In fact, what we as MMA and SOS found is that the bill does exactly nothing for that. What it does is it repeats and recreates the same financial model. The bill overall is appalling.
Bird says the SABC should receive a bailout from government for coverage of the elections.
What we know is that the people at SABC are trying their absolute best with increasingly diminished resources. I know that they were given a small amount of money extra to try and deliver the elections. So to be clear for people, so when you actively defund the SABC, as it appears government is doing, the last few times they've given money to SABC to help them get out of the economic quagmire they're facing, they were loan guarantees and SABC paid them off. Why on earth is the SABC not getting the money in the bailouts when they quite rightly should be?
The top story at 5 o'clock, Home Affairs has announced that their offices will be open for 5 hours on Saturdays from the 6th of April to the 25th of May from 8 a.m. for collecting IDs, handling new applications and issuing temporary identity certificates. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Refilwe Jani confident that Banyana can beat Nigeria. Bulls Daisies aim to maintain good run in new season, and Sunrisers Hyderabad win toss and they elect to field first. I'll have more on this at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Some rain across Gauteng and northern parts of the country in areas it is very heavy as well. If you're driving through the road weather conditions, please just take it nice and easy. Watch your speeds, increase following distances, and make sure you got your lights on to become highly visible to other road users. It's a pretty busy one across Gauteng this afternoon. We're going to crash a vehicle overturning on the N12 eastbound at Kamaro. Quite a big delay and wait to get through that from the Klip River Drive side. That's direction Alberton. Crash on the R59 in the rain before ready interchange. If you're arriving from the Vaal, that's a heavy backlog. The Mike 1 today from Melrose all the way down through to sort of Uncle Charlie's. It's just a long queue. An earlier vehicle fire on the N1 south at 14th Avenue, backlogging traffic from the Four Ways area. And if you're leaving Pretoria, that stationary truck just after the R21, still queuing traffic all the way back through to Linwood Road and looking particularly heavy as you leave Pretoria en route towards Midrand and Joburg today. Over in Durban, a couple of breakdowns. The latest that we've had is just before you get to Inanda Road, so coming through from the Queen Nandi Drive side. That is quite a busy one. The N3 outbound queuing into Spaghetti Junction for connections onto the N2 to go north, and a broken down truck around Isipingo, so the N2 queuing heavily through Prospector on your way towards the South Coast area. Cape Town, a breakdown at Plattercliff Hill, slowing traffic heading out from the Century City area, and some delays into Mitchell's Plain. No lights on the M7 at Samora Michelle, that's heavy, and the R300, no lights as you off ramp at Stock Road. So that's a queue that starts right back at Delft. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 35 Rand from Hatfield to Centurion. It's for Ikoko who steady chill on neutral on a downhill just to save fuel. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 35 Rand from Hatfield to Centurion Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
Masanda wanna trust their creativity to ensure Yanga gets nothing from Mzansi's capital city. But the gentlemen from the east want to leave Kabuyelo in tears. This is the second leg quarter-final battle of the CAF Champions League. Experience Africa's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns versus Young Africans, on Friday 5 April at 8 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
I tell you what, I hope you've been enjoying the show so far. I mean, today's like day 4 for me hosting this show. If you just tuned in for the first time, come on, man. But anyway, my name's Ashraf Garda. The show is called The National Pulse, and by and large, it is we are there to reflect the pulse of the nation. So certainly between myself and my production team headed by Temba, that's what we're trying to do, to understand the pulse of the nation, what South Africa feels right now, what you feel as a person in South Africa, individually and certainly on the national platform. And with that regard, every time you have an opinion, you can certainly connect with us by calling in general, but also voice notes. Or you can also WhatsApp text us 0614 104 107. Now, having said that, right, you do know on the Friday when Alvin used to host the show, we used to have this thing called the bonding session. And by and large, we've just renamed it, like rebranded the bonding session. But it doesn't mean myself and my guest will not be bonding today. I can tell you now, Pumzile Zonke and I have already bonded sort of even before we got on air. We're going to have a bonding session. And the beauty part, in terms of this fireside chat, we're going to get you to be a part of it. So up to 6 o'clock, lots of fun. And we've asked a question which people have responded already. I see they have opinions on it. So you could further send us opinions because we're going to play those voice notes as well. But let me do this. Let me bring in my do I call you my guest? I don't know. You see the thing with the fireside chat, right? I mean, there's no literal fire here. So I want people to with artificial intelligence, they can create their own fire, whatever it is. Maybe you guys could get our cameramen to do so, right? But the reality is, when you have a fireside chat, there's no one who really leads the conversation. We're just two guys having a braai, maybe, I don't know, and just chatting, right? So, Pumzile Zonke, great to have you with me as my chommy for the next 45 minutes, 50 minutes or so.
Thank you very much. I am so excited to be bonding with you, eh?
Yeah, perfect. Now, listen, just to get the record straight. Okay. In a normal introduction, I would introduce you formally. I'll leave all the formalities out. So many people still default you to what SABC One presenter, right?
Yes.
You like that, or you get irritated by that?
Yo, that's like a distant memory. That was like how many years ago when I was a continuity presenter at SABC One. However, it's still something I cherish because it opened a lot of opportunities for me. However, I've grown, and I'm not as pretty as I was then, since we are also on pre-privilege.
Yeah, you're saying that deliberately. Yeah.
Yes, but a lot has happened. I mean,
okay.
And
so what has happened? Just like in 2 minutes, quick
2 minutes.
Bio.
So, for those who remember me as a continuity presenter, I've shifted from continuity presenting on television. I've done radio presenting for 10 years. I've moved into production. I've produced. I was a specialist producer to creative directorship. I was heading one of the largest television channels in the Southern Africa, and now I'm running my own business. I'm doing PhD. I'm an academic at the same time. I'm consulting. I'm a strategist. So yeah, I'm a man of many hats, and I'm a creative. I'm also everything that you can think of within the broadcast and creative arts
and the business you're in, what business is that?
It's production. So we do films, we do documentaries, but predominantly most of our business has been coming more from strategy consultancy, particularly for public broadcasting enterprises, whether you're a community platform, whether you're
Is SABC your client?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
I used to work for them.
I know.
But I do a lot of business with public broadcasters outside South Africa, because remember, the business model of public broadcasting is totally different. There's this paradox of public service deliverables and also managing your commercial interests as well. So I come in and bridge the gap and reconcile those tug-of-war differences to help them create competitive businesses.
Okay.
And I've got different concepts and strategies.
Now, we could talk about that for 45 minutes, and we may get the new group CEO of the SABC also calling in. But I'm not going to do that.
No.
Because we've got more important things to talk about, right? So we've asked you, as part of this fireside chat, to say, you know what, you can pick up any topic in the world that you want to talk about. And there are many things, right? What do you want to get off your chest?
So look, this topic came about because of the observations that I've picked up, particularly in the social media spaces. There are a lot of young people that are crying, particularly women, that they don't get opportunities because certain candidates with certain type of looks are the ones who get their way. There are certain people, when they walk into a room, people like light up. But there are certain people, when you walk into the room, they just see you as any Tom, Dick, and Harry. And it had nothing to do with your credentials. It has nothing to do with your before they can even see or dissect what you can do. And I was like, first I thought, that can't be a thing. Is it a thing? And I was like, let me see if I could speak to other people, to a broader audience, and find out what are their opinions about this. There's a lady that once mentioned this to me. I was in a high position in some organization. Like, no, what? Oh, we were issuing out a tender, and these people came in and they were pitching. But there was this one who was so cute. I was like, no, we can work out something here. I was like, where does that come in? Have you even seen the presentation? Have you seen the pitch deck? Is he even good? What is the record of his delivery? And I was like, okay, fine. Ashraf is the right person to discuss this with.
Yeah, okay.
And from what I'm hearing from producers, apparently our lines are clocked up.
Well,
people are excited about this. I'm like,
I've been told, like,
in an electioneering
season, leave the ANC, leave the EFF, leave the DA, leave Banyana. They've got a big game coming up here. Leave all that alone. We want to talk. So what you've titled, you branded this your pitch, right?
Yep.
What's it called?
So
you're saying what? Pretty what? Just you've given the name because they may just hashtag it. Pretty
privilege.
Okay.
Is it a fact or fiction?
Okay.
And whichever the pendulum swings for you, why do you think so?
So what do you think? Up front. That to qualify people what? People get their way because they're prettier.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
I'll tell you this. In an entertainment industry and in a broadcast industry, particularly if you talk about audiovisual spaces, yes. It's a fact. It's a thing. People treat you differently based on how they see you and how they perceive you before they can even hear you utter a word. But what is a conundrum for me? It's jobs that are behind the scenes where I never thought it's a thing because you are not in the business of visuals. And people say, actually, you know what? This office, we hire people that are good looking because we align that with how we position ourselves, with how we brand ourselves. And hence, we decide to make sure that we have good-looking people. That sounds weird. That sounds wrong. That sounds unethical. But we are not judgmental here.
Okay.
Whichever way, we want to hear your views.
So, for example, I mean, we had the Miss Universe the former Miss Universe was a guest here on SAFM about an hour before my show, right? So, understandably, there's an element of beauty aesthetics in terms of her winning her title, right?
Yep.
And you're saying that's okay. If she's a Miss Universe.
Because it's a beauty pageant, it's okay.
Okay. But if she's applying for a job as an attorney, which is very much behind the scenes, or being a strategist, and it is done purely on the basis then of image and appearance, you're saying...
That's not okay.
But you're saying it happens.
It does.
But to a large degree?
Look, I won't give you a scientific evidence because my sample of study is very minimal right now. However, based on the word of mouth and the few that I've encountered, they said it happens even in law firms, in accounting firms, in radio stations, in different institutions. It happens.
Pretty privilege. I've learned a new word, I promise you. Pretty privilege. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, the plan is, we're having this fireside check. I could call out listeners to call in, but I mean, if you got the number, you can do the same thing. You got the number? Did I give it to you?
I'd love to call the number, but give it to me.
Well, if you can read there, let's see how good your eyesight is. I mean, right on top there.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's the number.
So, SAFM listeners, you can call us here on 086 000 2032. I have to repeat that. 086 000 2032.
Okay, and then there's
Give us a call.
There's an option to
and you can send us an SMS. You can send us an SMS.
Well, more the WhatsApp voice note.
More the WhatsApp voice note. Give us a voice note. Did I say pa?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Send us your voice note on 0614 104 107.
Okay, there we are.
And we're available on X. Used to be Twitter, SAFM Radio.
I tell you what, Twitter, X doesn't sound.
It's not lending.
X. That's why I do this deliberately. I say, tweet me on the X platform, as opposed to X me. I mean, honestly,
it'll take some time for us to get
platform because I don't like that. Okay, I want to check. I think there's some there may be some callers already or voice notes that we actually have. So let's see what the audience thinks. What does South Africa think about pretty privilege?
Hi, SAFM team. Grace here. I 100% agree. Pretty privilege, twang privilege is a thing, you know. You might find out that I do not have the same accent as someone else, but that person gets the job just because of their accent. And sometimes you actually realize that some people have the accent, but they're not the smartest, you know what I mean? So it's being pretty and having an accent that will get you far in South Africa. I don't know else. Okay, not only in South Africa, but everywhere. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Okay, that's one. Being pretty and having an accent.
I'm interested in finding out, is there a man who feels like I was hired because I have good looks?
Were you hired because you had good looks when you were at SABC 1?
Look, as the head of channel, no. They needed my brain, but I'm pretty sure for presenting, they wanted a certain look and a certain age. And in those spaces, even in terms of your weight as well, you can't weigh a certain kilo for a certain job. And if you fit the profile, that is pretty privilege. But then the question is it still pretty privilege if it's a requirement as part of your deliverable and as a part of the business strategy?
Well, let's see. Listen, people can call in, you know that, but there's a few more voice notes. Let's play them.
Good afternoon, SAFM and to listeners. It's Ashraf Garda from Durban. Mr. Ashraf, would being to say pretty privileged, I say in South Africa today, looks don't matter. It's whether you're a go-getter or applying for a job. In today's world, I believe it's who you know and the context you have. So whether you're pretty or good-looking, it's today's in the world, it's who you know and you have a good contact that will get you what you want in life today, whether it's a job interview or etc.
Okay.
They always say, in the land of equality, some are more equal than others. Thank you.
Okay. In the land of the blind, what's it? The one-eyed giant is king or something like that. I mean, I heard that one too, yeah.
Maybe we should check the unemployment stats and see the number of people that are unemployed. How good-looking are they?
You could start a political party with that sort of angle. You could get thousands of people joining you. I promise you that, you know. But does this guy called in? I think it's Salvin from Durban. Does he have a point?
I think he does.
I mean, he's saying it's who you know.
Definitely true. It's about who you know.
So one is the pretty part.
Yep.
But the other now is the issue of your networks. And he's suggesting your networks are even more important.
Interesting. I agree with him with that. But I'm not sure if other listeners will agree. It'll be nice to hear some more and see.
Okay, let's get another. We got a call, in fact, from Mangaung. Paul on the line. Hi, Paul.
Hi, yes, sir.
Yeah, good. What's it? Pretty privilege.
Awesome.
Tell me about pretty privilege.
Pretty privilege. Yes, it does exist. And as the same as academics, if you are graduated in certain school, they will pick you according to your reputation of the school you are coming from. But if not, it means that you lose the job. It doesn't matter how much degrees you are having. It depends with which school you set on. So pretty also it works.
Okay. But I mean, wouldn't that be discriminatory then?
Paul? It is, but it's something that you can't change it.
Why can't we change it?
I think it's because of the environment that we are living on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, okay. Thanks for that call. Your response?
My question, Ashraf, is that I'm also wondering, and I'm throwing it out there and shooting from the hip. Could it be as well this pretty privileged concept? It's just something that comes from our insecurities, and there's nothing like that as well. Is it something that comes from within?
But, you see, your point that, there could be examples of people being hired to do the same job if two people are equal and doing the same job and they choose one person, that's fine. But you're saying if they chosen primarily because they're prettier, then I'm suggesting, isn't that discrimination? So what's their recourse then?
Yeah, but if I say it's a company strategy, it's a company plan, especially if it deals with client service, and therefore...
So you're in production, right?
Yep.
So would that be part of company strategy?
So the production that I'm in is television, and how you cast is based on characters, and the characters are informed by the storylines. Therefore, the storyline will have a variety of different characters, good-looking and not so good-looking. Therefore, if I need someone who looks like a model based on the story and the character, I will deliberately look for a good-looking person. But if I need a villain, someone who looks a certain way, scary and whatnot, I'll look for something not so good-looking. And that's not discrimination, but that's part of the deliverable to make sure that our output speaks to our objectives as the production and for the client.
Okay, so there are exceptions to that rule, and
Yes.
the examples we've just made. There's a couple more voice notes, and again, welcome your calls. By the way, if you just tuned in, so this is the very first of what we call now the fireside chat. It was once called the bonding session, but we certainly are bonding, right? But over a very important issue, I think, on a Friday, called. Pretty privileged. My guest is actually we're not my guest, we're sort of co-hosting this thing, Phumzile Zonke. Let's hear this voice note.
Sounds weird, that sounds wrong, that sounds
Pretty privilege. It's been here for many, many years. There was a time when pretty girls were referred to yellow bones, and yellow bones make it everywhere, be it entertainment, be it corporate. Yellow bones will be like in the forefront of everything. So pretty privilege, I don't think it's really a fiction. It's a fiction, but then it's something that is there, and unfortunately it's a pandemic, because it's not only in South Africa, it's globally, where pretty privilege is, in a way, I would say, I might be wrong, but then prioritize other than, considering one's skills, intellect and emotional intelligence and. So it is indeed a fact, not a fiction. This is Tsepiso. And Ashraf, I'm so happy to hear you on air. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. That's a pretty privilege that I'm back here. I can tell you now. I worked on my looks. I'm wearing a linen shirt today, by the way, just so that you know. I made sure that, because this radio show has now become very visual with the onset of digital broadcasting. So, they take pictures. It's posted on Twitter or axed out anyway. It's on Instagram and certainly streaming live on YouTube. So I had to wear a blue linen shirt, worked on the way I sound, and maybe that pleases you. That's great. Thank you. But, okay, in fact, that call is suggesting that, it's a fact, not a fiction. It's. What do you make of this? Is it a big enough concern? You raised it.
So I think I think it's a big issue for women, because most of the time are the ones who raise it the most. With men, it's often about the grit, the hard work, the pushing and the connects and the networks and whatever that you can deliver. But with women, there's that thing. And it comes from the fact that there's still a huge level of patriarchy where positions of influence and of power are still male-dominated.
So, in fact, the man, in many ways, would be making that decision that we talk about. When we say about pretty privileged,
yes.
It would be male-dominated decision-making.
Correct, whether consciously or not, or intentionally or not. But bottom line is, we probably are the ones perpetuating it, either knowingly or unknowingly, and women are the ones who are the receiving end of it and observing it and feeling it, that actually, they didn't hire me because I was not deemed sexy enough. And being sexy had nothing to do with the job description.
Okay. Listen, we got a call. It is Anthony from Polokwane outside, but I thought maybe you might want to introduce him in your best Umhlobo Wenene accent. You can go ahead. You can go.
Hi, Ashraf.
Must introduce?
Yeah. Wait, hold it, Anthony. We're gonna get my guest.
Give me his name again.
He's Anthony outside Polokwane.
Anthony from Polokwane siyakwamkela apha ku SAFM wamkelekile kunqa phambili. Uthini? You just brought memories, Ashraf.
Well, I'm sure. Anthony, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me, Ashraf?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
You definitely didn't get your job on your looks, that I'm sure of.
Oh, I'm so disappointed in your
No,
comments.
I'm not forgetting.
He's looking younger
I'm
now.
not forgetting anything. I'm simply saying you got it on merit.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, that said, very interesting topic. I think it's extremely complex, very nuanced. It's pretty privilege. It depends on who the panelists are. I think if you have an all-female panelist and you're a female, your good looks might actually backfire on you. That's the one. Secondly, I think it's got to do with geography. If you are in Singapore, India, for instance, your looks won't get you the job, for instance, in the public service, where they have very competitive entrance exams. In our context in South Africa, too, you're not going to become a heart surgeon because you look good. You've got to pass your exams. And, of course, if you're a politician, I guess it will be a combination of both of them. You know, if you can scream the best in a branch meeting, despite your looks, you could get to parliament and get into the cabinet. So I think it's a bit of everything. But that said, the more the merit, the more likely the society will work. Great topic.
Well, that's the serious part about society works best when there's a merit system in place. But the reality is that may not be the case. Anthony, good call. Really enjoyed that and got me thinking about even the backfiring of a pretty privilege. I'll tell you what, it's 5:30 now. Let's get in the news headlines with the rather pretty Madupi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garda. In your headlines this hour, South Africans, especially those living in KZN, are being urged to exercise careful eye care to reduce the spread of conjunctivitis or pink eye. Home Affairs has announced that their offices will be open for 5 hours from 8 a.m. on Saturdays from the 6th of April to the 25th of May for collecting IDs, handling new applications, and issuing temporary ID certificates. And the Desmond and Leah Tutu Legacy Foundation has strongly condemned the killing of 7 foreign aid workers by the Israeli Defense Force in Gaza. Details of these and other stories, 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good afternoon. A heavy one for Gauteng motorists and rain as well for the trip home and trip into the weekend. Please drive carefully. You've worked hard all week. You want to get safely into that weekend to relax and enjoy yourself. Here's the big ones. The N1 going south, coming out of Pretoria. Broken down truck pretty much in the middle of the carriageway at the R21. It's a heavy queue that extends right back as far as Linwood Road. Heading north, a breakdown at Old Joburg Road. So pressure on from Olifantsfontein as you come out of Midrand and go slow through to Centurion. A vehicle on fire, N1 south at 14th Avenue. I don't think it's still burning, but it's still there causing an obstruction. The traffic's horrible. It's all the way back to four ways. Crash involving a vehicle overturning at Kamaro Street. That's eastbound, so leaving Soweto on your way to Alberton. That's heavy. There's big backlogs on the R59 north into Reading Interchange. There's a queue. Traffic parking back towards Swakoppies. And if you're going the other way on the 59, jackknife truck down by the Blockhouse services, so the 59 towards the Val, also badly backed up as well. Durban stationary truck just around Tweeny Hill on the N2 South. That's a heavy queue from the M4 Southern Freeway down through Prospecton as you line up onto the South Coast Territory. And Cape Town, two really big standout queues today are both going into Mitchell's Plain. No traffic lights. M7 at Samora Michelle. That's heavy from Govan and Becky. And the R300, no lights still at the Stock Road exit. That's a heavy queue with the R300 traffic delays pushed back towards the N2 highway. Also just noting, if you're on your way out of town, the stationary vehicle at Platycliff's been cleared and it's just left a backlog of traffic moving slow from Belleville out towards the Okavango Road exit in the Brackenfell area. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
I'm looking at you and saying whether we should ask you about pretty privilege just now, but let's get with the sport first.
Alrighty, let's get straight into it. It's almost time for Banyana to get underway, and Captain Refilwe Jane says that their goal of qualifying for the Olympics remains alive ahead of their final round qualifying clash against Nigeria. Now, Banyana faced the Super Falcons in a two-legged affair with the first leg away in Abuja, now at 6 p.m, before the second leg back home at Loftus Stadium in Pretoria next Tuesday. And Njani says that they know the clash against the 11-time Women's Africa Cup of Nations winners will be extremely challenging, but she believes in Banyana's capabilities.
Though we've played Nigeria a couple of times and recently we've won against them, we still need to give them the respect that they deserve. They're still the undisputed African champs in theory, looking at how many times they've ruled Africa. So we cannot take that for granted or take it away from them. We still respect them, but also we look at the quality that we have in our team. We look at the strides that we've made in the team. We look at the past results. Not so long ago, we've beaten them twice. We've played a couple of draws against them. So we've seen that with the journey that we've been on, it's an upward trajectory. So we are very happy with our performances. We know also they've been doing well in the previous games that they played. They did well also in the World Cup. So it's going to be a totally different ball game. This is like the final of the finals. So we'll try and make sure that we get a good result again and make sure that we go to represent.
Absolutely. The final of the final kickoff is now at 6 p.m. And I know earlier on I did say that you can catch the action on SABC Plus and SABC Sport website. However, unfortunately, SABC Sport has sent out communication just a few minutes earlier on saying that it will not be broadcast on their channel as a whole. And they're not giving us any explanations. However, they're saying that SAFA and SABC Sport will provide further details sometime soon.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
It's really unfortunate, but just to give you a glimpse into the starting lineup, Kalen Swart is in the goalpost. Then we have the likes of Dlamini, Gamete, Noko Matlo and Makubela at the back. We see Captain Refule Jani straight into the starting lineup with Linda Motlalo, Hilda Machaya and Ramalepe there. And then at the front, there is Tembi Khatlana and Jermaine Soposengwe. So a very strong side that we have there lineup against Nigeria, and we're really hoping that they do well. Another fixture that is on today is Mamelodi Sundowns, and head coach Rulani Mukwena has urged the Yellow Nation to come in their numbers to rally behind the team when they face Young Africans in the second leg of the CAF Champions League quarterfinal. Masandawana is one of the clubs in contention of qualifying for the FIFA Club World Cup 2025, and Sundowns will qualify through rankings if they beat Yanga today. Other than that, the Tunisian side will qualify by winning the CAF Champions League or by overtaking Sundowns in the ranking. And kickoff is at 8 p.m. Sundowns has been saying that fans, please make sure you come in as early as you can. I'm looking at the weather outside. It seems like it's raining. Hopefully it's not raining down in Pretoria. Then moving on to rugby news, Bulls Daisies captain Lusanda Dumke says that she's looking forward to a competitive new season of the Women's Premier Division, with most teams looking to dethrone them. The Daisies come into the 2024 season as defending champions, having finished top of the log with 60 points and a 100% winning streak last term. Now, the Women's Rugby Domestic League resumes next weekend, and Dumke is quite confident that the Daisies will continue from where they left off last season.
I think what I'm looking forward to this season is the team's performance. I think we did pretty well last season, and I think all the teams will be looking forward to have a competition with us, which is something that we want. And I think the competition will be up in terms of every team wanting to be competitive and actually to beat both days because of how we dominated last season. And I think the competition and the standard of rugby will improve, and that's something that we're looking forward to as a team.
Ending things off with tennis, Nick Kyrgios says that he's very hopeful of a return to the tennis court next week. The Australian had missed virtually the entire of 2023 season with injury. Kyrgios just played just one ATP Tour level match since late 2022 after suffering wrist and knee injuries. And the 28-year-old now says that he's back practicing next week, but he hasn't given a date on when he'll be back playing on the ATP Tour again. With that said, it is a wrap from my side.
I got a serious question for you, because I mean, you talk sports, right?
Yes.
So, we've been talking about pretty privileged.
Pretty privileged, yeah.
So Pumzile wants to know. I don't want to know. He wants to know from you. Have you been under pressure to be pretty, to gain? I'm not going to use the word privilege now because I have to be very careful. To be able to open doors in your career.
No.
No pressure.
No. No pressure from my side. I worked very hard for what I have right now. But I was just telling him off air that I worked in a newsroom where there was a rumor that our editor, who was the head of department, he was hiring based on looks because literally the ladies that worked in the newsroom were hot. So, like I said, 80% of the ladies that worked in the newsroom, they could do the job, but there was this one lady. It was so obvious that, my goodness, we don't understand what you're doing here. And just by the way, I didn't study journalism, but I worked very hard to be in the newsroom. And she studied journalism. However, everyone kept on asking, what is she doing here? So, I
because
guess,
of how hot she was.
Not because of how hot she was, but some of the things. Yeah, like some of the things she did, it was like, how do you?
She was qualified, unqualified.
Literally.
In fact,
and she would get shifts more than some people, and everyone was like, how? And it didn't end nice for the editor then.
Okay, but you've got your job and you're still moving on.
Yeah.
Thank you. There we are. We certainly follow the soccer. It's an important game for Banyana against Nigeria, two-legged final before the finals or something like that, Olympic qualifier. Right, let's, in fact, what we're going to do, we still need to cross, there's issues around money, and we're going to cross to Jimmy Moyaha just in a moment.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Okay, before we get to once again talking about pretty privilege with Phumzile Zonke as he, shares this fireside chat with me, let's get to the very important issue of the money markets with Jimmy Moyaha from MoneyWeb, and whether money moves where pretty privilege goes, I don't know. But either way, Jimmy, what's on the show today?
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening to me and to the listeners. While we don't have a show on Friday, we do have a wrap of how the markets have been performing. And it's been quite an interesting day with the U.S. developments. We got U.S. jobs numbers out today. They surprised to the upside. We expected that only 212,000 jobs would have been created in the month of March. Instead, 303,000 jobs were created on the non-farming side of things. The unemployment rate in the U.S. also came down fractionally to 3.8%. This showing that the U.S. economy remains strong, and that fueled U.S. markets. The Nasdaq up 1.2%, the S&P 1% in the green, and the Dow Jones up 0.2%. The rest of the markets didn't have such a good day, with Asian markets still tracking the previous losses from the previous day. They all sort of finished in the red. The South African markets were no different, with the all-share down 0.8%, the top 40 down 0.75%, resources down 0.8%, industrials 0.75% in the red, and financials down 0.6%. The currency, however, did have a slightly better day, with the rand sitting at 18.65 rand against the dollar, at 23.55 against the British pound, and 20.21 rand against the euro. Those keeping an eye on a Bitcoin, that had a marginally better day, sitting at $67,750 a coin there, with Ethereum at 3,308. Interestingly enough, commodities have been moving in the right direction, with the exception of Brent crude. That is sitting at $91.50 a barrel, finally crossing that $90 threshold. We hoped it wouldn't, but as I said, other commodities prices having a slightly better day. The price of gold sitting at $2,327 an ounce. The price of platinum, $938, marginally weaker, around 0.1% there. Palladium, $1,006 there, down 2% on the day's trade. Looks like it's going to be an interesting week next week, as we see reflections of the announcements that were made made this week by the various Fed speakers, as well as the jobs and numbers that came out. We know that, of course, the Chinese markets haven't had the opportunity to react to news as yet. They were closed for the last 2 days for holiday festivals. They'll be returning on Monday. So we'll see how Chinese and Asian markets continue to digest the news coming out of the US, but by all accounts, the strength of the US economy showing us that we are far from ready to receive interest rate cuts as we thought we might be.
And there's a cut there, just as Jimmy Moyaha spoke about interest rates cuts. Jimmy, you still there? No, I think he may be gone, right? Okay, we got the gist of that, and there's no show today. But that's an interesting one. I mean, interest rates cuts, South Africa is certainly hoping that we do have these interest rate cuts, but that's, according to Jimmy, not going to happen. Jimmy, of course, with the Money Web market update. Right, let's get moving. We have many of these voice notes of people, because I said you can't text opinions like this. We need to hear you, right? So before we get to you once again, Pumzile, let's get to some of those voice notes.
Hi guys, Anonymous here. I must say I agree with Pretty Privilege. The better you look, the more chances that you'll get a job. I'm not one of the good-looking guys out there, I must attest. I'm dark-skinned, very big. And guess what? I've got 6 academic qualifications, including a medical degree, but I'm still struggling to get a job. I go to interviews, all the people get employed, and I don't, or I get called last. The reason why I studied so much was because I was not socially acceptable, and then I had to find a way of keeping myself busy. So it's a fact. Pretty privilege is a reality. Thank you.
But I mean, this is a serious call, actually. Trying to make fun, but this is like said. He's very qualified, medical degree, saying I was socially unacceptable, something along that line, right? But that's a serious issue.
It's crazy. It's scary for someone who says has a medical degree over and above other 5 more qualifications that he has. So, which proves that actually it's not only women who goes through this, even men themselves.
So there's huge pressure. I mean, just from my side, just so that we know, I know in my space as a broadcaster, on a radio show, maybe hosting a TV show or moderating or program directing, I don't have to be the prettiest, right? No, I don't have that privilege, but I think I do need to be presentable. Yes. And I'm personally very aware of they say if you can't play football, at least dress like a footballer, that type of thing. So being very aware that you need to play the part of the space that you're in, right? And be very intentional about what you're wearing, where you're wearing, and what image you want to project. Now, I mean, you'd concur with that, right?
I agree. We are visual beings, and I don't know how many times I've heard people say, "Oh no, he has beauty with brains," or "She has beauty with brains," and I don't think people could use those words together for no reason. Clearly, there is something to talk about not only the brains but the beauty. But whether there's a relevance in having both in whatever workspace, it's another question, I guess, for another day.
Yeah. The other point that I think was made was like, is there a counter issue where someone who's now, and we can have this whole debate about what is beautiful, and societies have different views about beauty, whether you need to be thin or you need to be big, and understand that. But leave that for the side. The other one is like, if you're intelligent, or rather skilled in a certain career, and you also happen to be very beautiful, are you not under huge pressure because everybody's looking at you and making assumptions about you? So what type of mental anguish does that person go through? Because they may well walk into the job anyway, because they're that good at the job. But because they're just naturally better looking than everybody else, there's an aspersion cast on them. It's like,
That's a tough one. Yeah. So, because I'm not sure what they go through, but I can imagine how pressurized that can be for someone to always live up to that expectation. Not only to be that excellent at your job, but to also remain that good looking and that.
I would think so. Okay, there's more voice notes. Let's get another one.
Hi, Ashraf. It's me again, Cynthia. What comes to mind on your fireside chat is the movie The Associate. So, yes, I think good looks are a ticket to a good life. Thanks. Bye-bye. Enjoy your weekend.
Okay, thank you. The movie, did you watch the movie, The Associate?
The Associate.
I thought maybe you produced it. But anyway, we need to watch it. The Associate. Cynthia, better tell us more about it. Just text us. We certainly can't get you on the line again. But okay, very clear about her position. Let's get another, right?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the witness there, Mr. Zonke. East London. Yeah, I agree with the voice note that yes, if you're pretty distant, you've got an advantage. Plus, especially if you know your story, you can speak very well. But the looks is everything. You've got an advantage than the other people. Sure.
It's amazing how many people say the looks are everything.
I'm wondering.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm wondering about how much of the colonialism is playing a role in this perception
in shaping our thinking. Yeah.
And what constitutes the standards of beauty. From which prism are we analyzing, or are we concluding that you are pretty, therefore you belong to someone who has or who deserves pretty privilege?
And you know, it's as you're talking, you're right. I mean, you mentioned colonialism, and the reality is not just colonialism, but popular culture now shapes a lot of the things that we do. So that is why a thing like a KFC or a McDonald's is like part of our life, but it's not even made in this country. It's actually made thousands of kilometers away, but we embrace it like it's our food, or, for example, right? But I mean, here's the point. In terms of cultural differences, and I don't mean just in South Africa, but you know. Let's say if you're in the USA, you're expected to dress in a certain way. And now we're talking females now, right? You're expected to dress in a certain way if you want to move along. That is why when you watch many of these American movies, there's a certain way that you typecast when you're working in a corporate. And I don't have to tell you, just think Chanel suit and you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Okay. But having said that, there's also the counter-argument where we're not talking of natural looks now. Looks are one thing. That I can tell you, if you're wearing, something more revealing it may work in a certain culture, but then you go to other cultures and actually you're going to be frowned upon. You've got no chance of getting a job. And I mentioned to you coming from a Muslim background myself, if you work in parts of the Middle East, you've probably got no chance. Because the tradition of wearing a headscarf or being modest is the norm, whereas in other societies it may not be the norm.
Yes. And if you look at the African attire as well, it can be something that is acceptable as a formal outfit. Yeah. But you go elsewhere, it's like, what's this?
Exactly.
And therefore that means, whose standards of beauty are we following for you to categorize it as someone who's a beneficiary of that pretty privilege? Is it only just your body looking, or how you wear it?
And the clothing, all that comes into play, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, you know what, it's a seriously light-hearted, serious conversation that emanates from a fireside chat with Phumzile Zonke. And I tell you what, there's more to come. There's more to come. But I tell you what, there's a couple of more voice notes that I want to pick up on, right? So let's see if we can get another. Okay.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, what the previous callers are saying is absolutely true. If you have the good looks, you have a better chance of getting the job. Point blank. I've seen it before, and they still do it until today. This comes from Terence.
Okay, there we are. Terence saying, I mean, what we've heard often. I mean, the other way is just move away from, again, so the normal when you say pretty, it would immediately tell people listening is like, and they got this image, someone who's very beautiful. But, if I can just extend the issue of pretty to, cultural advantage. That means someone, if you're comes from a Zulu background, and then you would want to hire someone who's isiZulu speaking. So that's not pretty the way you maybe have framed it, but that's like by association, because you know what, this person gets me, and I get that person. I mean, doesn't that also happen?
Look, but now it's no longer pretty privilege per se.
Yeah.
It's borderline, I don't want to say nepotism, but when you hire people based on your relatability, and I think that should be frowned upon. I think people should get opportunities based on their credentials, based on what they can do. How you look and how you present yourself should not be the deterrent. I mean, if it's that much of a deal breaker, then let's have a conversation about that. But don't disqualify me because of it.
Okay, there's more. There's a couple of more WhatsApp comments as well. But let's get to that and the callers right after this.
Aston Villa have found comfort on the top half, and they want maximum points to retain their decent position.
Put it back, and this time, Daniolo is on! The equaliser belongs to Aston Villa!
Yet the Bees want to cause havoc and deprive the Villains by registering an away victory.
Wissart tried one of them in the first half, he's finished it in the second, and Brentford have turned this round.
This is the Premier League. Catch the exciting clash between Aston Villa FC and Brentford FC on Saturday, 6 April at 3 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
South Africa is facing an increase in people diagnosed with non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, cancers, hypertension, lung problems and obesity. This also increases the number of people living with these diseases and mental health.
Many people living with these preventable diseases may not be immediately aware unless they go for health screening and testing.
It is our responsibility to invest in our healthier future through regular physical activity, healthy diets and avoiding risky health behaviors such as alcohol and tobacco use.
The Department of Health urges people to go for regular health screening for early detection and effective treatment if they are diagnosed with any of these conditions.
This message is brought to you by the National Department of Health.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
A cricket correspondent and indeed a sports expert, Kevin Rademacher. I know you're a big Luton Town supporter. You told me before yesterday, before your game against Arsenal, that you thought Luton might get thrashed. In the end of the day, they did quite nicely. Going down 2-0 away at Arsenal is certainly not a disgrace at all.
I said we're going to lose 8-0 because 12 of our first team players are out. We're such a small squad as it is, but 12 of our main players are out. Yesterday on our bench, we had 4 teenagers, one being 16 years of age, and 2 goalkeepers. We really don't have any depth. However, I think Arsenal also took their foot off the pedal a little bit at half-time, if I'm honest.
Top Sport on SAFM.
Hi there, John Carricker here. So I've got a new show, right? It's called The Weekend. It's from 10 to midnight on Saturday and Sunday nights. And it'd be really cool if you could tune in. I'm not really sure what the show's about yet. I know there's going to be some great music, and there's going to be an interview or two, and there's going to be a feature, and we'll do quizzes and, I don't know, other stuff. Still not sure. So maybe I could have some help from you if you have a suggestion for what should be on the show, john@safm.co.za. And tell your friends, please. That would be really cool. And if you could join me between 10 and midnight, Saturday and Sunday night. You probably have other things to do, but trust me, this will be much better than whatever you have planned. And don't forget to tell your friends. Put it into like a diary or a calendar entry or something. Thanks. 10 to midnight, Saturday, Sundays. I'm John Carricker. The show is The Weekend.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
And John's instruction is you've got better things to do, but this will be better than the better things to do. So there you are. Instruction made, 10 to midnight. Got that Saturday, Sunday. Right, you want to introduce the next caller very quickly?
Yes, we've got Lindo from East London. Lindo, welcome to SAFM.
Hello, guys. How's it?
Oh, we're good, Lindo. How are you doing?
I'm good. This is a very interesting conversation. I've been listening since I've been driving from work. But I think it would be interesting to expand on this conversation in future, maybe looking at around what pretty means over time and how the definition of pretty changes over time. So back then we could have said pretty is based on how I see you and how socially acceptable your facial aesthetic is, maybe. But we also just need to look at it these days around how different societies perceive what we call pretty and the different cultural contexts. So where I'm going with this is that at the moment, you could get someone who is appealing when it comes to their face, but because of what you guys already mentioned around popular culture now is teaching us, that it's important to have a certain brand that's trending on TikTok. That's why brands are even capitalizing on these social media platforms to sort of have people having an interest in their brands. So you find that at times a woman could walk in, I'll make an example of a woman. A woman could walk in wearing a certain brand and looking a certain way in terms of what is socially acceptable right now. And that is what pretty is at that particular point in time. And so I think even in the context of workspaces, makeup, the kind of makeup you have, the kind of weave you have, the kind of clothes you have. And it has an impact and defines what pretty is.
Okay, Lindo, I'm going to stop you only because we're out of time, but I think your point is absolutely valid, and I made the point as well that concept of pretty will change from generation to generation, but also from cultures. Different cultures have very, very different ideas of what pretty may be. So thank you for that, because we've got about a minute or so to go, so I don't think we've got time to play more voice notes, maybe. I don't think so, because I need to get to you. Now, you thought it was going to be a light-hearted conversation. But you can't talk about something as important as and expect it to be light-hearted.
It's not light at all. Yeah. It's a very emotive topic as well. Because people are hard done, people are losing opportunities based on something that has nothing to do with what they can do. So, I'm surprised.
How do we take this conversation forward?
I think it needs an entire show on its own, by the look of things. And perhaps it would be nice to see if we could also do some scientific research around it and then see how our business is dependent on this thing. Or is it just?
And whether people have picked up on being discriminated against purely because they're less pretty than other people.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it for the show. You've been a great co-host, and it's been cool. It's been cool having this hot fireside chat with us. So maybe we'll do it some other time. You never know.
Indeed, we'll do it another time. But those who want to see me, they can catch me on the social at Phumzile Zonke or at Zonke P.
And I will do the same thing as well. We'll take some pictures together to see who's the pretty of the two of us. I promise you we'll do that and see what happens. Okay, Phumzile Zonke having good fun. By the way, John Carricker comes up next with a show this week, today. What does that mean? I'm going to find out. Okay, either way, let's get first things first. It's the news at 6 with Madupi.
Very much, Mr. Garda. The top stories this hour: South Africans urged to guard against the pink eye, and Home Affairs to open on Saturdays. Very good evening. South Africans, especially those living in KZN, are being urged to exercise careful eye care to reduce the spread of conjunctivitis or pink eye. The province has seen a sharp rise in the number of cases since January, now peaking at around 14,000. As many holidaymakers have now returned home after visiting KZN for the Easter weekend, there are fears that the infection may spread to other provinces. Optometrist Naima Badat is urging people to take precautions.
Bacterial conjunctivitis is usually associated with a bacterial infection, which can be coming from obviously things around you, common colds, flus, and other sorts of bacteria. Important is to not touch your eyes with your hands to try and reduce the risk of infection and spreading of the bacterial conjunctivitis. Very important once again is hygiene. So maintaining a good lid hygiene is important. Doing morning and evening lid scrubs or